Tonight we embark on a journey not just through time, but through the very fabric of your being, back to a civilization that, in many ways, was both vastly different and surprisingly similar to our own. Imagine, if you will, the cool, dry air of the ancient Mesopotamian plains, the scent of dust and distant incense, the murmur of 1,000 voices echoing from sun-baked brick walls. You feel a peculiar sensation, a throbbing behind your eyes, a dryness in your mouth that no amount of water seems to quench. Ah yes, you're experiencing the morning after a Babylonian feast, a hangover of truly epic proportions. You probably won't survive this, but hey, at least it'll be a good story. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as you settle in, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You awaken on a reed mat, the rough fibers pressing into your cheek. The room is still, save for the distant bray of a donkey and the soft rustle of palm fronds outside your window. Sunlight, even through the small opening, feels like a blacksmith's hammer pounding against your skull. Your tongue feels like a piece of old leather, and a vague, unsettling memory of last night's revelry flickers at the edge of your consciousness. Ah, the date wine. The fermented grain concoctions that flowed like the Euphrates in flood season. You push yourself up, groaning, and your head swims. The world seems to tilt on its axis for a moment, and you close your eyes, waiting for the nausea to recede. This, my friend, is your introduction to the Hangover, Babylonian style. And trust me, they knew a thing or two about indulging. You stumbled out of your sleeping quarters, the cool clay floor a minor comfort against your hot, aching feet. The air outside is already warm, thick with the smell of baking bread and something vaguely animal. You notice your neighbor, a stout merchant named Arnungal, already at his stall, hawking textiles. He looks surprisingly spry, which only adds to your misery. You wonder what ancient secrets he possesses to combat the morning after blues. Perhaps a secret Babylonian elixir, passed down through generations of merrymakers. Or maybe he just had less date wine than you did, a concept that seems utterly foreign given last night's atmosphere. You remember a moment, hazy now, when you challenged him to a drinking contest. A contest you very clearly lost. A slight chuckle escapes your lips, quickly turning into a wince as the vibration jars your brain. Your first thought, beyond the desire for sweet oblivion, is water. You make your way to the communal well, the simple act of walking an arduous journey. Each step sends a jolt through your system. As you approach, you see women already drawing water, their clay jars clinking softly. The sound, usually so mundane, now grates on your nerves. You manage a weak smile, and one woman, noticing your pallor, offers a small knowing nod. She probably recognized the universal signs of excessive celebration. You reach the well, and the cold water, when it finally touches your lips, is a small miracle. You drink deeply, slopping some down your chin in your haste. It's a temporary reprieve, a brief moment of coolness in the inferno of your head. You consider dunking your entire head in, but the thought of the shock sends shivers down your spine. You then remember something your elderly aunt, a woman wise in the ways of traditional remedies, once mentioned. She spoke of various concoctions, strange mixtures intended to banish the demon of the morning sickness. Your mind, still fuzzy, tries to recall the ingredients. Was it mint? Or perhaps some bitter herb? You recall her saying something about grinding up swallows' beaks, which, even in your current state, sounds rather unappetizing. You vaguely remember a recipe involving a ground-up bird, mixed with myrrh and some kind of wine. You shudder. That sounds less like a cure and more like a punishment. You decide for now to stick with water. You wander through the narrow streets, The vibrant chaos of the city, usually a source of fascination, now a cacophony of unbearable noise. The shouts of vendors, the bleating of sheep, the distant sound of a potter's wheel. Each sound feels amplified, 1,000 tiny daggers piercing your eardrums. You yearn for silence, for the cool, dark quiet of your home. You pass by a temple, its ziggurat towering majestically against the clear blue sky. Even the devout, you imagine, sometimes had a bit too much fun during festivals. You wonder if the priests had their own secret hangover cures, perhaps a divine intervention of sorts. Maybe a special prayer to Shamash, the sun god, to make the sun less sun-like. You spy a small herbalist's shop, its entrance shrouded in draped cloths to keep out the dust and heat. A wave of hopeful curiosity washes over you. Perhaps this is where you'll find your salvation. You step inside, and the air is immediately cooler, filled with the pungent scent of dried herbs and spices. Bundles of strange plants hang from the ceiling, and clay pots filled with powders and liquids line the shelves. An elderly woman, her face a roadmap of wrinkles, looks up from grinding something in a mortar. Her eyes, shrewd and knowing, instantly assess your predicament. A night of revelry, she says, her voice raspy but kind. You nod weakly, too miserable to speak. She smiles, a faint, almost mischievous glint in her eye. She gestures to a small stool, and you gratefully sink onto it. She begins to prepare something, her movements slow and deliberate. You watch, fascinated, as she mixes various powders, adds a few drops of what looks like oil, and then stirs it all with a small wooden stick. She then adds a bit of water, creating a thick, muddy paste. This, she explains, is a traditional remedy. She tells you it contains powdered myrrh, a resin known for its anti-inflammatory properties, and a touch of pennyroyal, which was believed to help with digestion. She then adds a peculiar ingredient, a tiny amount of powdered licorice root. Historians still argue whether the Babylonians fully understood the medicinal properties of all the herbs they used, or if it was simply trial and error, mixed with a healthy dose of superstition. You hope it's more than superstition. She hands you the small clay bowl with the paste. Eat this, she instructs, and then lie down. It will help. You eye the concoction with a mixture of hope and trepidation. It smells earthy, a little bitter, and slightly sweet. You take a hesitant spoonful. The taste isn't terrible, surprisingly, but it's certainly not delicious. You slowly consume the rest, trying not to gag. She also gives you a small clay tablet with instructions, etched in cuneiform. You're too blurry-eyed to read it properly, but you assume it says something like, "Don't do that again," or, more likely, "Drink plenty of water." You thank her, managing a slightly stronger voice, and make your way back into the bustling streets. The sun is higher now, and the heat is intensifying. The paste in your stomach feels interesting. Not necessarily better, but certainly not worse. You decide to heed her advice and find a cool, quiet place to rest. You remember a small, shaded courtyard behind your home, usually a peaceful spot. As you walk, you pass a group of children playing a game with knuckle bones. Their joyful shouts, which would normally amuse you, now merely irritate. You silently vow to cut back on the date wine, at least for a day or two. You reach your home, grateful for its sturdy brick walls that offer a respite from the sun. You lie down on your reed mat, pulling a thin linen cloth over your face to block out the remaining light. The world outside seems to recede, its noises softening into a distant hum. The mere pennyroyal licorice concoction slowly begins to work its magic, or perhaps it's just the power of suggestion. You feel a subtle easing in your temples, a gentle softening of the throbbing pain. The nausea, which had been a persistent companion, starts to lessen its grip. You close your eyes, focusing on the rhythmic sound of your own breathing. You drift into a light doze, your mind still a bit foggy but no longer a battlefield. You dream of lush gardens, of cool, flowing water, and the sweet scent of blooming date palms. When you stir again, the sun has shifted, casting long shadows across your room. The air is still warm, but the intensity of the day has begun to mellow. You sit up slowly, testing the waters. The throbbing is now a dull ache, manageable. The dryness in your mouth is gone, replaced by a lingering, slightly medicinal taste from the herbal remedy. You actually feel human again. You reflect on the night before, and the ancient Babylonians' seemingly insatiable thirst for revelry. You recall a quirky tidbit you once heard, that the Babylonians were among the first to regularly brew beer, and it was a staple of their diet, even given to children, sometimes in diluted form. Imagine that! No wonder they had so many hangover cures. It makes you wonder how much productivity was lost to collective headaches. Perhaps that's why they built such magnificent structures. They needed something to occupy their time when they weren't nursing a headache. You decide to venture out again, but this time with a clearer head. The city, which had seemed so hostile earlier, now appears vibrant and full of life. The market is still bustling, but the sounds are no longer grating. You even manage a genuine smile at our Nungle, who grins back, seemingly none the worse for wear. You decide to pick up some fresh dates and perhaps a loaf of bread for dinner. The simple act of eating something other than a medicinal paste feels incredibly appealing. You make a mental note to ask Ernungle his secret for avoiding such severe hangovers. He probably just drank less. What a concept! As you walk, you pass by a scribe meticulously etching cuneiform into a clay tablet. It's a reminder of the incredible intellect and organization of this ancient civilization. These weren't just party animals. They were astronomers, mathematicians, lawmakers, and poets. They developed complex irrigation systems, wrote epic poems like the Epic of Gilgamesh, and created a sophisticated legal code, all while occasionally suffering from the effects of too much fermented barley. It makes you wonder if Hammurabi ever had a splitting headache while drafting his famous law code. An eye for an eye, unless you're hungover, in which case, maybe just a strong cup of tea. You find yourself pondering the nature of ancient medicine. While some remedies seem odd to us today, many were based on observation and passed down knowledge, often intertwined with spiritual beliefs. The idea of balancing humors or appeasing angry gods played a significant role. It's a testament to human ingenuity, how they tried to understand and alleviate suffering with the limited tools they had. You realize that, despite the thousands of years separating your time from theirs, some human experiences remain timeless. The joy of celebration, the pain of a hangover, and the universal desire for relief. The sun begins to dip towards the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The air grows cooler, and a gentle breeze rustles through the palm trees. The city, which was once a cacophony, now hums with a softer rhythm. The calls of the vendors are less insistent, and the sounds of life settling down for the evening begin to emerge. You feel a profound sense of peace, a quiet contentment that only comes after overcoming a significant challenge, even one as mundane as a hangover. You've faced the Babylonian beast, and you've emerged victorious thanks to a bit of water, a lot of rest, and a curious herbal paste. As darkness truly begins to fall, the first stars appear in the vast Mesopotamian sky. The Babylonians, you remember, were keen astronomers, charting the movements of celestial bodies with remarkable precision. They believed the stars held clues to their destiny, and perhaps even a remedy for their earthly ailments. You look up, feeling a connection to those ancient stargazers, who, just like you, gazed at the same stars from this very land, perhaps after a night of their own indulgence. It's a comforting thought, knowing that some things truly never change. You yawn a deep, satisfying stretch. The day's adventure has been exhausting, but ultimately rewarding. You return home, the last vestiges of your headache long gone. The air inside is cool and still. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the promise of a truly restorative sleep. No more date wine for a while, you promise yourself, at least not until you've fully recovered from this immersive experience. You smile, thinking about the elderly herbalist and her strange but effective remedy. It was certainly an experience you won't soon forget. The ancient Babylonians, for all their advancements, clearly knew how to party and how to recover. You chuckle softly. Perhaps they had a saying, "What happens in Babylon stays in Babylon," especially the headache. As you lie down, the sounds of the city fade into a gentle drone. The cool night air whispers through your window, carrying the scent of dust and distant flowers. Your muscles relax and your mind, now clear, drifts. You think about the enduring legacy of this incredible civilization, a legacy built on innovation, art, and perhaps a healthy appreciation for a good time. And you, dear listener, have just had a taste of their world, a journey through time and the challenges of a very ancient hangover. It's a reminder that no matter the era, some experiences are universal. You feel the pull of sleep, a soft, inviting embrace. The day's adventures and your journey through ancient Babylon are now complete. Tonight we journey deep into the heart of ancient Babylon, a land where mighty rivers nurtured civilization, and where, as you've already discovered, a lively social scene could lead to a truly monumental morning after. You find yourself still feeling the echoes of that epic revelry, a phantom throb behind your eyes, a lingering dryness on your tongue. It's a peculiar kind of time travel, isn't it? To experience the very physical sensations of people long past. You probably won't survive this, but think of the stories you'll have to tell if you can remember them. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. As you settle in, please, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together as we delve deeper into the remedies and routines of a recovering Babylonian. The sun, now a benevolent warmth rather than a malevolent glare, begins its slow descent. You've had your herbal concoction, you've rested, and the worst of the headache has receded. A gentle breeze, carrying the scent of the nearby date palms, wafts through your open doorway. You stretch, a deep, satisfying stretch that unkinks muscles you didn't even realize were tense. The world no longer spins, and the sounds of the city, once a torment, are now a vibrant symphony of everyday life. You hear the rhythmic thump of a weaver's loom, the distant call of a shepherd guiding his flock, and the cheerful chatter of children playing in the street. This, you realize, is the real Babylon, not the blur of last night's festivities. Your stomach, which had been in a state of rebellion earlier, now sends a quiet signal hunger. Not a ravenous hunger, but a gentle craving for something substantial, something to truly ground you. You think of the fresh bread baked in communal ovens, the sweet dates, and perhaps a bit of grilled fish from the Euphrates. The thought alone makes your mouth water. You decide a short walk to the market is in order, not just for food, but to fully reacquaint yourself with this incredible city. It's a testament to the effectiveness of that ancient remedy, or perhaps simply the passage of time, that you feel well enough to even consider such an outing. As you step outside, the evening air is a balm. The dusty streets, which had felt so oppressive earlier, now seem to invite exploration. You pass by homes made of sun-dried mud bricks, their simple facades belying the rich lives within. Children chase each other, their laughter echoing off the walls. A group of men are gathered outside a house, playing a board game that looks suspiciously like what we might call royal game of Ur, a popular pastime in ancient Mesopotamia. You pause for a moment, intrigued by their focused expressions and the clack of the game pieces. You wonder if they, too, had been part of last night's festivities. Probably, because everyone in Babylon liked a good party. You resist the urge to offer them some of your now empty herbal remedy pot. You arrive at the bustling market, now winding down for the evening. Vendors are packing up their wares, but enough remain to offer a good selection. The air is filled with a delicious mix of aromas: freshly baked bread, roasted meats, exotic spices, and the sweet perfume of ripe fruit. Your stomach rumbles in appreciation. You approach a bread stall where loaves of flatbread, still warm from the oven, are stacked high. The baker, a burly man with flour dusting his beard, greets you with a hearty smile. You purchase a generous loaf, its warmth seeping through the papyrus wrapper. You consider how lucky you are to be in a place where good bread is so readily available, especially after a rough morning. Next, you spot a fruit vendor with baskets overflowing with dates, figs, and pomegranates. You choose a handful of plump, amber dates, their sweetness a perfect contrast to the savory bread. You remember hearing that dates were a staple of the Babylonian diet, used not just as fruit, but also to make syrup, vinegar, and of course, the infamous date wine that contributed to your earlier woes. It's funny how something so innocent in its natural form can be transformed into such a potent hangover inducer. You wonder if the date palm itself ever gets a headache from all the fermentation. As you stroll, munching on a date, you pass by a temple dedicated to Ishtar, the goddess of love, war, and fertility. The scent of incense hangs heavy in the air. You recall that festivals in ancient Babylon were often tied to religious observances, which probably explains why the line between piety and partying sometimes got a little blurry. Historians still debate the exact nature of some of these ancient rituals and how much alcohol was truly consumed versus symbolically offered. But judging by your mourning, you're inclined to believe a lot of actual drinking was involved. You briefly consider entering to offer thanks for your recovery, but decide a quiet walk is more appropriate given your recent activities. You notice a group of musicians packing away their instruments, lutes, drums, and a kind of harp. They must have been playing at one of the evening's events, perhaps even at the very feast you attended last night. You recall the lively music, the rhythmic beats that seemed to compel you to dance, even if your dancing was more enthusiastic than graceful. Music, you realize, was an integral part of Babylonian life, used in religious ceremonies, royal courts, and of course, for pure entertainment. It makes you smile to think that even thousands of years ago, people gathered to share music and good cheer, proving that some things about the human spirit are truly timeless. You briefly hum a tune you remember from last night, but quickly stop, realizing it probably sounds terrible outside your head. You find a quiet spot near the city walls, overlooking the vast plain. The sun has almost set, and the sky is a canvas of deep blues and purples, with the first stars beginning to twinkle. You sit down, the warm bread in your hands, the sweet dates a comforting presence. The cool evening air is a welcome sensation. You think about the sheer scale of this city, Babylon, with its impressive walls, its towering ziggurats, and its bustling population. It was truly a marvel of the ancient world, a center of learning, trade, and culture. A mainstream historical fact you recall is that Babylon was once the largest city in the world, a truly sprawling metropolis. And yet, even in such a grand setting, the simple act of recovering from a hangover remained a universal experience. You take a bite of the fresh bread, its earthy flavor a satisfying counterpoint to the sweet date. You feel a profound sense of gratitude for the present moment, for the simple pleasure of a meal after a day of discomfort. You're also grateful for the progress of modern medicine, which provides more reliable hangover cures than ground swallows' beaks. Although you have to admit, that ancient herbal paste did surprisingly well. You consider what a strange and wonderful thing it is to step into the shoes, or perhaps sandals, of someone from such a distant past. It makes you appreciate the common threads that connect humanity across millennia, like the enduring popularity of fermented beverages and the inevitable consequences. A small, fluffy cat, its fur the color of the desert sand, approaches you cautiously. You offer it a small piece of bread, and it accepts with a delicate nibble, its purr a soft vibration in the quiet evening air. Even in ancient Babylon, cats were companions, perhaps even guardians against mice in the granaries. A quirky tidbit you remember is that cats were highly valued in Mesopotamia, believed to bring good luck and ward off evil spirits. Maybe this little feline friend is your own personal good luck charm, guiding you through the remnants of your Babylonian hangover. You gently stroke its head, feeling its warmth and softness. It's a comforting presence in this ancient world. As the last sliver of sun dips below the horizon, the stars truly begin to emerge, a dazzling tapestry across the ink-black sky. The Babylonians, you recall, meticulously charted these stars, identifying constellations and predicting celestial events. They believed the heavens held profound secrets, and their observations formed the basis of early astronomy and astrology. You imagine ancient priests and scholars gazing up, just as you are now, seeking knowledge and understanding in the cosmic dance. It's humbling to think that your hangover, a very earthly concern, happened beneath the same timeless, silent expanse. You lean back against the warm brick of the city wall, feeling the last traces of tension leave your body. The evening air is cool now, carrying the faint scent of wood smoke from distant cooking fires. You close your eyes, listening to the gentle hum of the city as it settles down for the night. The market's chatter has faded, replaced by the occasional bark of a dog or the soft cooing of a dove. You feel a deep sense of calm, a peace that has been hard-won after a tumultuous day. It's a peace that comes from knowing you've successfully navigated a unique ancient experience and come out the other side feeling surprisingly refreshed. You yawn, a wide, luxurious yawn. The bread and dates have settled comfortably in your stomach, and the herbal remedy seems to have worked its subtle magic. Your body feels heavy, pleasantly tired, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. You think about all the daily routines of the ancient Babylonians, their work, their families, their gods, and their occasional overindulgence. They were, in many ways, just like us, striving, celebrating, and sometimes regretting the previous night's decisions. It's a comforting thought, a reminder of our shared humanity across the vast stretches of time. You slowly rise, bidding farewell to the little cat, who is now curled up in a tight ball, fast asleep. You make your way back towards your temporary dwelling, the path illuminated by the soft glow of moonlight and the occasional flickering torch. The city, now mostly asleep, exudes a quiet grandeur. You pass by the imposing Etemenanki, the ziggurat dedicated to Marduk, the patron god of Babylon. Its sheer size is breathtaking even in the darkness. You imagine the immense effort it took to construct such a monumental structure, a testament to the dedication and engineering prowess of the Babylonians. You wonder if the builders ever had hangovers while working on that, because that would have made for some really crooked bricks. As you step back into your simple home, the air is cool and still. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the promise of a truly deep and peaceful slumber. The memory of your morning's distress is now just a distant echo, a faint ripple on the calm surface of your mind. You have experienced a slice of ancient life, not from the dusty pages of a book, but through the very sensations of your own body. And you've learned that even in the greatest empires of the past, a good hangover cure was always in demand. You smile, a genuine, content smile. You've survived ancient Babylonian revelry, and you've emerged wiser, and perhaps a little more appreciative of modern pain relievers. You lie down, pulling the linen sheet over you. The sounds of the night are a gentle lullaby, the chirping of crickets, the soft rustle of palm fronds, the distant murmuring of the Euphrates River. Your breath deepens, slowing to a steady rhythm. The thoughts of Babylon, its history, its people, its parties, and its remedies slowly begin to blur around the edges of your consciousness. You are comfortable, safe, and utterly at peace. Your journey into the past for tonight is complete. You drift into a deep, dreamless sleep, knowing that the ancient Babylonians, for all their wisdom, likely envied your peaceful slumber. You awaken to the gentle stirrings of the Babylonian dawn, a soft light filtering through your window. The air is cool and fresh, carrying the familiar sense of dust, a hint of wood smoke, and the subtle sweetness of date palms. Gone is the throbbing headache, the dry mouth, the unsettling nausea. You feel remarkably refreshed, a testament to the power of a good night's sleep after a day of ancient remedies and urban exploration. You stretch, a slow, languid movement, and feel your muscles unwind. This, you think, is what a Babylonian morning should feel like, devoid of the consequences of too much fermented grain. You rise and step outside your simple dwelling, ready to greet the day. The city is already beginning to awaken, though it's still quieter than the bustling afternoon. A few early risers are making their way to the communal well, their clay jars balanced on their hips. You hear the distant bray of a donkey and the soft chatter of a family preparing their morning meal. The air feels crisp and clean, a welcome contrast to the heavy heat of midday. You decide to take a leisurely walk, to truly absorb the details of this ancient city now that your senses are fully operational. As you stroll through the narrow streets, you notice details you might have missed in your previous, hazy wanderings. The intricate patterns carved into some of the mud brick doorways, the colorful textiles draped over market stalls already being set up for the day. You pass by a small temple, its entrance adorned with symbols you don't quite recognize, but which clearly hold deep meaning for the local populace. The Babylonians were deeply religious, their lives interwoven with rituals, gods, and goddesses who governed every aspect of their existence, from the rising of the sun to the flow of the rivers. You wonder which deity was responsible for a clear head in the morning, probably not the one associated with feasting and wine. You pass a group of scribes, already at work in a shaded courtyard. They sit on stools, meticulously pressing their reed styluses into soft clay tablets, etching out cuneiform script. Their work is precise, methodical, and utterly fascinating. You recall that the Babylonians were incredibly literate for their time, with a vast body of written records covering everything from legal codes and astronomical observations to epic poems and everyday business transactions. It's a mainstream historical fact that cuneiform, developed by the Sumerians and later adopted by the Babylonians, was one of the earliest systems of writing. A monumental achievement that allowed for the complex administration and cultural flourishing of their empire. You muse that even these highly intelligent scribes probably had days when their own hangovers made reading their own script feel like deciphering alien symbols. You pause to watch a potter at his wheel, his hands deftly shaping a lump of clay into a beautiful vessel. The rhythmic whir of the wheel and the focused concentration on his face are mesmerizing. Clay was an essential material in Babylonian life, used for everything from tablets to pottery, and even the very bricks that built their magnificent cities. It's a quirky tidbit that due to the scarcity of stone, the Babylonians became masters of brickmaking, developing sophisticated techniques for baking and glazing. You smile, thinking that if a Babylonian ever needed to make a pitcher for their hangover cure, they could probably whip one up in minutes. You briefly consider trying your hand at it, but decide your talents probably lie elsewhere, like perhaps expertly avoiding ancient hangovers. As you continue your walk, you find yourself near the Great Ishtar Gate, a towering, magnificent structure adorned with vibrant glazed bricks depicting lions, dragons, and bulls. It's truly breathtaking. a testament to the artistry and power of Babylon. You imagine kings and conquerors passing through these very gates, their retinues stretching for miles. Historians still debate the exact colors and pigments used to create such vivid glazes, a testament to the Babylonians' advanced knowledge of chemistry and materials. You wonder if the artisans who crafted these masterpieces ever celebrated a little too enthusiastically after finishing a particularly intricate dragon. The market is now in full swing, a vibrant tapestry of sights, sounds and smells. Vendors call out their wares, tempting you with fresh produce, intricately woven baskets and sparkling jewelry. You see stacks of dried fish, bundles of aromatic herbs, and large sacks of various grains. The sheer variety of goods is impressive, reflecting Babylon's role as a major trading hub in the ancient world. You pick up a small, intricately carved amulet, perhaps a good luck charm, a small memento of your time here. You joke to yourself that it's probably for warding off evil spirits, or perhaps just bad decisions. You chuckle softly. You then notice a gathering of people near a public fountain. They are listening intently to a storyteller, a man with a booming voice and expressive gestures, who is recounting a tale of gods and heroes. The audience hangs on his every word, captivated by the ancient myths that shaped their worldview. You realize how important oral tradition was in a time before widespread literacy, how stories were passed down through generations, preserving history, morality, and entertainment. You reflect on the Epic of Gilgamesh, a foundational piece of literature from this very region, a story of friendship, loss, and the search for immortality. You think how even a hangover couldn't dull the power of a good story. As the morning progresses, the sun begins its ascent, and the air grows warmer. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded courtyard, perhaps a public garden if you can find one. You remember hearing that the famous Hanging Gardens of Babylon, though their existence is still debated by scholars, were rumored to be a lush, terraced paradise. The scholarly debate about whether the Hanging Gardens truly existed or were a poetic exaggeration continues to fascinate historians. You imagine what a relief such a place would have been on a hot Babylonian day, or perhaps after a particularly wild night. You briefly close your eyes, picturing yourself wandering through its fragrant greenery, a true oasis of calm. You eventually find a small, quiet courtyard, shaded by a large fig tree. You sit on a low bench, enjoying the cool stillness. The sounds of the city are now a distant murmur, a gentle background hum. You reflect on the resilience of the ancient Babylonians, their ability to thrive in a challenging environment, to build such an impressive civilization, and to find joy in their daily lives. Despite the hardships, they managed to balance grand ambitions with the simple pleasures of life, like a good meal, a compelling story, and apparently a powerful hangover cure. You smile, feeling a quiet appreciation for their ingenuity and their humanity. A small bird lands on a branch above you, chirping a cheerful tune. Its song is a gentle reminder of the natural world, a counterpoint to the man-made wonders of the city. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sounds and sensations wash over you. You are truly present in this ancient moment, experiencing a slice of history not from a textbook, but through your own senses. It's a humbling and enriching experience, to walk where kings and commoners once walked, to feel the same sun and breathe the same air. And yes, to understand the universal lament of a morning after a good party. You open your eyes, feeling fully rested and revitalized. The energy of Babylon, once overwhelming, now feels invigorating. You decide to spend the rest of the day exploring more of the city, perhaps visiting one of the bustling markets again, or simply observing the daily lives of its inhabitants. You're curious to see how a civilization that could build such impressive structures also managed its daily grind, its social interactions, and its occasional overindulgences. You also silently promise yourself to be more cautious, if you ever attend another ancient Babylonian feast. Your liver, even across millennia, deserves a break. You rise from the bench, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The light continues to soften as evening approaches, casting long, dramatic shadows across the city. The air grows cooler, and the scent of evening meals begins to drift from the homes. You feel a deep sense of satisfaction from your day of recovery and exploration. You've truly immersed yourself in this ancient world, from the depths of a hangover to the heights of a clear-headed appreciation for its wonders. It's been a journey of personal discovery as much as historical exploration, and you've learned that, no matter the era, a little self-care goes a long way. As you walk back towards your temporary abode, you pass by a group of women chatting by a well, their voices soft and melodic in the twilight. You hear the distant sounds of a flute, a haunting melody carried on the evening breeze. The city, which was so vibrant and bustling during the day, now settles into a more tranquil rhythm. You feel a gentle drowsiness begin to creep in, a natural tiredness after a full day. You've seen, smelled, heard, and even felt the textures of ancient Babylon. And you've done it all without the persistent interference of a massive headache. Success! You step back into your simple dwelling. The familiar coolness of the clay walls a comforting embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The day's experiences replay in your mind, a kaleidoscope of ancient sights and sounds. You've walked with the Babylonians, understood their challenges, and perhaps even shared a chuckle or two at their universal human foibles. The stars begin to emerge in the dark sky, silent witnesses to millennia of human stories. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your journey through ancient Babylon and its unique hangover cures has been truly enlightening. You drift into a deep and peaceful sleep, knowing that you've experienced something truly special, a whispered secret from the past. The next morning, you find yourself waking to the same gentle Babylonian dawn, but this time with an even deeper sense of calm. The air is still, the light soft, and the world outside your small dwelling hums with the promise of a new day. There's no trace of the previous day's misery, only a feeling of complete restoration. You stretch, a slow, luxurious movement that speaks of deep, uninterrupted rest. You've fully recovered from your ancient indulgence, and now you're ready to delve even deeper into the intricacies of Babylonian life, perhaps with a focus on their more unusual customs and beliefs, those quirky tidbits that truly bring history to life. You step outside, inhaling the crisp morning air. The city is still awakening, the sounds muted, the smells subtle. You decide to head towards the river, the mighty Euphrates, which was the very lifeblood of Babylon. It was this river, along with the Tigris, that allowed agriculture to flourish in Mesopotamia, providing the fertile land that sustained the empire. You imagine the countless boats that traversed its waters, carrying goods, people, and ideas to and from this great city. The river was not just a resource. It was a highway, a provider, and a symbol of life itself. And you're pretty sure it never got a hangover, which is more than you can say for yourself. As you approach the riverbanks, you see fishermen casting their nets, their movements practiced and rhythmic. The water, a murky brown, flows steadily towards the distant Persian Gulf. You notice small, round boats made of reeds and bitumen, unique to this region, bobbing gently on the surface. These are guffers, ancient coracles, and a quirky tidbit is that they were incredibly stable despite their simple construction, used for centuries to transport goods and people across the rivers. You imagine yourself taking a leisurely ride, perhaps fishing for your breakfast, though your fishing skills are likely better suited to a supermarket aisle than a vast ancient river. You briefly consider hailing one, but decide to simply observe for now. You sit on the riverbank, feeling the warmth of the rising sun on your face. The gentle lapping of the water against the shore is incredibly soothing. You watch as a group of women fill their water skins, chatting softly among themselves. The river, you realize, was not just for commerce. It was a social hub, a place where daily life unfolded. You reflect on the ingenuity of the Babylonians in harnessing the power of these rivers, building complex irrigation systems that transformed arid land into fertile fields. This mastery of water management was a mainstream historical fact that underpinned their entire civilization, allowing for the abundance of food that supported their large population and, yes, their penchant for brewing and feasting. You then remember another intriguing aspect of Babylonian life: their divination practices. They were obsessed with predicting the future, interpreting omens from everything, from the flight of birds to the entrails of sacrificed animals. You recall a scholarly debate about whether their astronomical observations, though incredibly advanced, were driven more by a desire for astrological prediction than by pure scientific curiosity. Was it a quest for knowledge, or a desperate attempt to control an unpredictable world? The debate continues, but you can certainly appreciate the human desire to know what tomorrow holds, especially after a particularly unsettling yesterday. You envision a Babylonian diviner, perhaps consulting a liver model, trying to determine the best course of action. Imagine asking a diviner, "Will I have a hangover tomorrow?" And the diviner, after carefully examining a sheep's liver, solemnly declares, "The signs point to extreme regret and a pounding headache." You chuckle to yourself. It makes you wonder what kind of omens they saw if someone had really overdone it. Probably a very dark and foreboding liver. As you continue your walk along the river, you see farmers leading their donkeys laden with produce towards the city. The air is now filled with the cheerful sounds of everyday commerce. You notice a small child playfully splashing water at a barking dog, a universal scene of innocence and joy that transcends millennia. It's these small, intimate moments that truly bring ancient history to life, reminding you that despite the grand empires and monumental achievements, the daily lives of people were filled with familiar joys and challenges. You smile at the child, who giggles and splashes even more water. You decide to head back into the heart of the city, drawn by the increasing buzz of activity. You pass by a school where young scribes are learning to write cuneiform, their chanting voices reciting lessons in unison. Education was highly valued in Babylon, especially for those destined for administrative or priestly roles. It's fascinating to think that these complex symbols, which look so alien to your eyes, were once the everyday language of commerce, law, and literature. You try to imagine learning to write that way, pressing little wedges into clay. Your hand starts to cramp just thinking about it. No wonder they had scribal schools. It looks like it required serious dedication, and probably very strong wrists. You then find yourself near a bustling marketplace specializing in textiles. The vibrant colors of dyed wool and linen catch your eye. Merchants loudly proclaim the quality of their wares, trying to entice passers-by. You recall that Babylon was famous for its luxurious textiles, often traded across vast distances. The skill of their weavers and dyers was highly renowned. You briefly consider buying a brightly colored shawl, but then realize you have no way to pay for it in ancient Babylonian currency, and explaining your predicament might take longer than your entire time here. You settle for admiring the craftsmanship from a distance. You notice a group of people gathered around a public announcement pillar where new laws or decrees are being posted in cuneiform. You remember the Code of Hammurabi, one of the earliest and most complete written legal codes in history, a mainstream historical fact. It covered everything from property rights to family law to criminal penalties, laying down a strict system of justice. You wonder if there were any laws related to public drunkenness or the consumption of too much date wine. Probably not. Because what's a little revelry among friends? Though you bet there were plenty of laws about damaging someone's property while drunk. If a man causes damage to another man's beer keg while under the influence of fermented barley, he shall repay him with 2 new kegs and a public apology, delivered sober. As the morning wears on, the heat begins to build, a familiar warmth that will soon turn into the intense midday sun. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area, perhaps a quiet tea house if such a thing exists in ancient Babylon. You imagine sipping on a cool, refreshing drink, perhaps a barley water infused with mint. The thought is incredibly appealing after your walk. You smile, thinking that even thousands of years ago, people sought out simple pleasures to combat the heat and the stresses of daily life, and occasionally to combat the lingering effects of a particularly lively evening. You find a small, open-air courtyard that seems to serve as a communal gathering spot. There are low benches and large clay pots filled with cool water. You sit down, grateful for the shade and the fresh water. You observe the people around you, a mother playing with her child, 2 old men engaged in a serious game of strategy, and a merchant haggling over prices with a farmer. It's a snapshot of ordinary life, a reminder that history isn't just about kings and battles, but about the everyday experiences of ordinary people. And these ordinary people, you realize, were remarkably sophisticated for their time. You reflect on the scholarly debates surrounding the daily diet of the average Babylonian. While we know they ate a lot of bread, dates, and fish, historians still argue about the exact proportion of meat in their diet, and how varied it truly was. Was it a diet rich in vegetables, or mostly grains and a bit of protein? It's a fascinating question, as diet plays such a crucial role in the health and vitality of a population, and perhaps their diet also influenced how quickly they recovered from a particularly potent night of drinking. A strong, fibrous diet might have been their best hangover defense. As the sun climbs higher, you feel a gentle drowsiness settling over you, a comfortable lull. The sounds of the city once again soften into a pleasant murmur. You close your eyes, leaning back against the rough clay wall. You've explored more of ancient Babylon, seeing its ingenuity, its daily life, and its enduring mysteries. You've glimpsed the vibrant tapestry of a civilization that, despite its grandeur, shared many of the same human experiences as your own, and you've done it all without the slightest hint of a headache. A triumph! You stir after a short, refreshing doze. The air is still warm, but the peak of the midday heat has passed. You feel invigorated, ready for more exploration, or perhaps just a quiet evening. You've truly assimilated into the rhythm of Babylonian life, from the raucous nights to the serene mornings. You realize that your initial headache, though unpleasant, was a strange sort of gateway, forcing you to engage with their remedies and their culture in a very direct, personal way. It was an unconventional but effective introduction to ancient medicine. You decide to take one last stroll through the quiet back streets, away from the main thoroughfares. You find yourself in a residential area where children are playing with simple toys made of clay. Their joyful shouts fill the air, a universal sound of childhood. You smile, feeling a warmth spread through you. It's a comforting reminder that despite the passage of thousands of years, the simple joys of life remain constant, and that even in a grand empire, the heart of life beats in the everyday moments of its people. As twilight begins to descend, painting the sky in soft pastels, you make your way back to your dwelling. The city lights, flickering oil lamps and torches, begin to emerge, casting long, dancing shadows. The air grows cooler, and a sense of calm settles over the land. You reflect on the incredible journey you've undertaken, a voyage not just through time, but into the very spirit of ancient Babylon. You've seen its monumental achievements, its daily rhythms, and its very human responses to joy and discomfort. And you've done it all with a clear head, which in ancient Babylon was probably an achievement in itself. You step inside your simple home. The familiar walls a comforting embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The day's quiet explorations and reflections have brought a new depth to your understanding of this ancient world. You close your eyes, picturing the vast plains, the mighty rivers, the towering ziggurats, and the faces of the people you've encountered. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are truly at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The whispers of ancient Babylon will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a hangover well conquered. The soft, cool air of the Babylonian pre-dawn settles around you as you stir from a deep, peaceful sleep. Your mind is clear, your body rested, and any lingering memory of that initial, formidable hangover is now a distant, almost amusing anecdote. You feel completely acclimatized to the rhythm of this ancient world, no longer a bewildered visitor, but a quiet observer, perhaps even a temporary inhabitant. You take a deep breath, savoring the subtle sense of dust and damp earth that permeate the morning air. Today, you'll explore more of Babylon's hidden corners, those less obvious aspects that reveal the true character of this remarkable civilization. You step outside your dwelling just as the first sliver of sun paints the eastern sky. The city is still largely asleep, shrouded in a soft, ethereal light. The only sounds are the distant call of an owl and the whisper of the wind through the palm fronds. You decide to wander towards the quieter, residential areas, away from the main thoroughfares and bustling markets. You want to see the everyday life, the small details that reveal the humanity of the ancient Babylonians. You're curious about their homes, their family structures, and their communal spaces. You chuckle softly, wondering if they had neighborhood watch programs, or if everyone simply knew everyone else's business. Probably the latter. As you walk, you notice the uniform construction of the houses, simple, rectangular structures made of sun-dried mud bricks, often with flat roofs that might have been used for sleeping on hot nights. The doorways are often narrow, providing privacy and protection from the elements. You see small courtyards within, hinting at the importance of family life and domestic space. A mainstream historical fact is that most Babylonian houses were built around a central courtyard, which provided light, ventilation, and a private outdoor area for daily activities. It was the heart of the home, a place for family gatherings and quiet contemplation. You imagine children playing there, and families sharing meals under the open sky. You pass by a small public oven, where women are already beginning to prepare the dough for the day's bread. The warm, yeasty scent fills the air, a comforting aroma that speaks of sustenance and community. Baking bread was a daily ritual, and these communal ovens were essential for providing food for the entire city. You think about how much simpler life was in some ways, where food was fresh, local, and prepared with a communal spirit. You briefly consider offering to help, but then remember your lack of ancient baking skills. You'd probably end up with a very lopsided, unappetizing lump of clay. You then notice a small, open-air workshop where a craftsman is meticulously carving a cylinder seal. These small, cylindrical objects, often made of stone, were rolled onto wet clay to create an impression, serving as signatures or declarations of ownership. They were used for everything from sealing legal documents to marking property. It's a quirky tidbit that each cylinder seal was unique, like a fingerprint, and the artistry involved in their creation was truly remarkable. You lean closer, watching his steady hands, his intense concentration as he carves intricate designs into the tiny stone. You wonder if he ever had a shaky hand after a night out. Probably not, because you don't want your signature looking like a squiggly line. As you continue your stroll, you hear the distant sound of chanting. You follow the sound and find yourself near a smaller temple, not as grand as the major ziggurats, but clearly a place of reverence. Priests are conducting a morning ritual, their voices rising and falling in a melodic rhythm. The air is thick with the scent of incense, a pervasive aroma in ancient religious spaces. You recall the deep polytheistic beliefs of the Babylonians, their pantheon of gods and goddesses who governed every aspect of their world. From Marduk, the supreme god, to the multitude of lesser deities associated with specific aspects of life, their spiritual world was rich and complex. You observe the solemnity of the ritual, the bowed heads of the worshippers, their quiet devotion. You remember a scholarly debate about the true nature of Babylonian piety. Were they genuinely fearful of offending the gods? Or was their religious practice more about maintaining social order and ensuring agricultural prosperity? It's a question that historians continue to ponder, trying to disentangle genuine belief from pragmatic necessity. You consider how much of their daily life, including their attempts at hangover cures, might have been influenced by their understanding of divine will. Perhaps a particularly bad hangover was a sign of divine displeasure. Unlikely, but a funny thought. You move away from the temple, respecting the privacy of the worshippers. You then spot a group of women gathering near a public water well, chatting animatedly as they draw water. It's a familiar scene, a timeless picture of community and shared daily tasks. You realize how much of ancient life revolved around these communal spaces: the well, the oven, the marketplace. These were not just places of utility, but vital social hubs where news was exchanged, friendships forged, and daily life unfolded. It makes you appreciate the simple yet profound connections that bound these communities together. You then notice a small, makeshift clinic set up in a shaded corner. An elderly woman, clearly a healer, is attending to a young child with a minor ailment. She's applying a poultice made of herbs, her movements gentle and comforting. You recall that ancient Babylonian medicine, while incorporating some effective herbal remedies, was also deeply intertwined with magic and divination. Illness was often seen as the result of demonic possession or divine punishment. It's a fascinating interplay of empirical observation and supernatural belief. You wonder what they would have made of a modern doctor, with their sterile instruments and germ theories. They'd probably think you were a wizard, or perhaps a very clean demon. As the sun begins to climb higher, bringing with it the warmth of the day, you decide to head towards the outer walls of the city. You want to see the fortifications, the massive brick structures that protected Babylon from its enemies. These walls, famously described by ancient Greek historians, were considered one of the wonders of the ancient world. A mainstream historical fact is that Babylon's walls were so thick that chariots could race on top of them, a testament to their incredible engineering prowess. You imagine the sense of security these walls must have provided to the inhabitants, a formidable barrier against the outside world. You walk along a quieter section of the wall, feeling the rough texture of the sun-baked bricks against your hand. You gaze out over the vast, flat plains stretching to the horizon. You imagine ancient armies marching across this very landscape, their standards fluttering in the wind. It's a powerful reminder of the constant conflicts and shifting power dynamics that characterize the ancient Near East. Babylon, for all its splendor, was also a city that had to constantly defend itself. And you realize that even a grand empire needed to maintain its defenses, sometimes even after a particularly rowdy festival. You observe the subtle signs of daily life, even in this more remote area. A farmer tending his small plot of land outside the walls, a shepherd guiding his flock towards a watering hole. Life continued, even in the shadow of grand fortifications and political intrigue. It's a comforting thought, the resilience of everyday existence. You reflect on the incredible amount of planning and labor that went into sustaining such a large population. from irrigating the fields to organizing the markets to defending the city. It was a complex, well-oiled machine, powered by human ingenuity and the desire for survival and prosperity. You find a shady spot near a small gate in the wall, sitting down to rest. The air is still and warm, carrying the scent of dry earth and distant vegetation. You close your eyes, letting the quiet rhythm of the ancient world wash over you. You feel a gentle appreciation for the simple fact of existing in this historical moment, unburdened by the complexities of your own time. You're simply a quiet observer, taking in the sights, sounds, and sensations of a world long past. And you realize that even without the immediate urgency of a pounding headache, this ancient world still holds a profound fascination. You stir from your meditative state, feeling refreshed and content. The sun is now high in the sky, marking the approach of midday. You decide to make your way back towards the heart of the city, perhaps to find some lunch. You've explored more of Babylon's hidden depths, glimpsing the ordinary lives of its people, the ingenuity of their craftsmen, and the enduring power of their beliefs. You've seen that even in a grand empire, life was a tapestry woven from small, everyday threads. And you've done it all with a clear mind and a sense of quiet wonder. As you re-enter the more populated areas, the sounds of the city grow louder, a comforting hum of activity. You pass by a bustling street food stall, the aroma of roasted meat making your stomach rumble. You smile, thinking that some cravings, like the desire for a delicious meal, are truly universal, transcending millennia and cultures. You decide to indulge, selecting a succulent piece of roasted lamb. It's simple, but incredibly flavorful. A perfect reminder of the simple pleasures that sustained this ancient civilization. You continue your walk, feeling a gentle drowsiness begin to creep in, a natural tiredness after a morning of exploration. You've fully experienced the rhythm of a Babylonian day, from the quiet dawn to the bustling midday. And you've done it all, thankfully, without needing to consult a diviner about the state of your liver. You chuckle softly. The Babylonians were a remarkable people, and you're grateful for this unique opportunity to walk in their footsteps, even if for a short time. As twilight approaches, casting long, soft shadows across the city, you make your way back to your dwelling. The air cools, and the stars begin to emerge in the vast Mesopotamian sky. You feel a deep sense of contentment, a quiet satisfaction with the day's discoveries. You've seen Babylon not just as a collection of monumental structures, but as a living, breathing city, filled with people who, like you, sought meaning, connection, and comfort in their daily lives. You've truly immersed yourself from the depths of a hangover to the nuances of daily existence. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylon, its walls, its markets, its people, its rituals, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylon will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world wonderfully experienced. You stir gently as the first light of another Babylonian morning filters into your dwelling. The air is crisp and cool, carrying the faint, familiar scent of the river and distant cooking fires. You feel completely at home in this ancient world now, the initial strangeness having given way to a comfortable familiarity. The aches and fogginess of your first morning here are a distant memory, replaced by a sense of calm and clarity. You stretch a deep, satisfying movement and prepare to greet the day. Today, you will explore the intellectual heart of Babylon, its schools, its libraries, and its fascinating approach to knowledge, which often intertwined with magic and the supernatural. You step outside, and the city is slowly coming to life. The sounds are still muted, the early morning quiet punctuated by the occasional bray of a donkey or the soft murmur of voices. You decide to head towards the scribal quarter, the hub of learning and literacy in ancient Babylon. You're curious to see how knowledge was transmitted, how new generations of scribes were trained in the complex art of cuneiform and the vast body of Mesopotamian literature. You imagine a scene of diligent students, perhaps a few mischievous ones, trying to avoid their lessons, and probably all of them just trying to avoid a long day. As you walk, you pass by more of the uniform mud brick houses, their courtyards still quiet. You notice the care with which some of the doorways are decorated, simple geometric patterns etched into the clay. These small artistic touches speak of a people who, despite their pragmatic approach to architecture, still sought beauty in their daily lives. You consider how different their concept of art might have been compared to our own, often functional and integrated into everyday objects rather than purely ornamental. You wonder if they ever had abstract art, like a canvas that was just a very expensive smudge. You arrive at the scribal quarter, an area marked by a higher concentration of larger buildings, likely schools and administrative offices. You see young boys, and occasionally a few girls, already making their way towards these buildings, their small clay tablets tucked under their arms. Education was primarily for the elite and those destined for priestly or administrative roles, but it was rigorous and comprehensive. A mainstream historical fact is that Babylonian scribal schools, known as Adaba, taught not only writing and mathematics, but also literature, law, and history. They were centers of intellectual life, preserving and expanding the vast body of Mesopotamian knowledge. You chuckle, wondering if they had a detention area for students who messed up their cuneiform. You peek into an open doorway of one of these schools. Inside, you see a group of students seated on low benches, diligently copying texts onto clay tablets under the watchful eye of a master scribe. The room is filled with the rhythmic sound of styluses pressing into wet clay. The sheer dedication required to master cuneiform is impressive. Imagine having to make thousands of tiny wedge-shaped marks, perfectly aligned, to form a single word. It would certainly give you strong fingers, and maybe a very sore wrist. You briefly consider trying to write your name, but decide against it. You'd probably end up with a very abstract, unreadable blob. You then remember a fascinating aspect of Babylonian intellectual life, their extensive libraries. These weren't just collections of books. They were vast archives of knowledge, often housed in temples or royal palaces. You recall a scholarly debate about the true purpose of these libraries. Were they purely for academic pursuit, or were they primarily for administrative record keeping and religious texts? While certainly serving practical purposes, the sheer volume and variety of texts suggest a genuine thirst for knowledge and a desire to preserve their cultural heritage. You imagine the quiet reverence within those ancient halls, filled with thousands upon thousands of clay tablets, each a tiny piece of a lost world. You consider the content of these tablets. Beyond legal codes and historical records, they contained hymns, myths, epic poems, mathematical treatises, and astronomical observations. A quirky tidbit is that some tablets even contained omens and incantations, revealing the deep intermingling of science, religion, and magic in Babylonian thought. They didn't draw the same sharp distinctions we do between these fields. Knowledge was a holistic pursuit. You wonder if they had a specific section for hangover remedies and other regrettable life choices, probably hidden in the omens and curses section. You decide to visit a marketplace specializing in medicinal herbs and magical amulets. It's an interesting blend, reflecting their holistic approach to healing. You pass by stalls selling dried herbs, roots, and strange-looking powders. The air is thick with pungent, earthy aromas. You remember the herbalist who helped you with your hangover. and you feel a renewed sense of appreciation for her ancient wisdom. You realize that while some of their practices might seem superstitious to us, many of their herbal remedies were genuinely effective, based on centuries of empirical observation. They knew their plants, even if they sometimes attributed their healing power to divine intervention. You then notice a stall selling an array of small, intricately carved amulets and charms. These were worn for protection against evil spirits, for good luck, or for specific ailments. You see small figurines of deities, animals, and abstract symbols. A quirky tidbit is that certain amulets were specifically prescribed to ward off particular illnesses or to bring about specific blessings. You consider purchasing a small amulet, perhaps one that promises to keep future hangovers at bay, though you suspect a more direct approach might be more effective. You chuckle softly. As you continue your exploration of this intellectual and mystical quarter, you pass by a diviner's stall. The diviner, a serious-looking individual, is consulting a clay model of a liver, meticulously studying its markings. You recall the importance of extispicy, the practice of interpreting omens from the entrails of sacrificed animals, particularly the liver. It was a crucial part of decision-making, from royal pronouncements to everyday affairs. The scholarly debate about the reliability and consistency of these divinations is ongoing. Were there actual patterns they observed, or was it a complex form of educated guesswork, designed to provide a sense of control in an unpredictable world? You certainly hope the results weren't too open to interpretation, especially for something important. You imagine a common Babylonian, perhaps struggling with a difficult decision, consulting a diviner. Should I invest in more barley, or try my hand at date wine production? The diviner gazes intently at the liver, then pronounces, "The omens are murky, but there's a strong indication you should hydrate thoroughly tomorrow." You smile. Some advice, it seems, is universally applicable. As the morning progresses, the city begins to hum with the full vigor of the day. The sounds of commerce, the chatter of voices, and the distant clamor of construction all blend into a vibrant symphony. You feel energized, invigorated by this deeper dive into the Babylonian mind. You've seen how they valued knowledge, how they sought to understand their world, and how they tried to influence their destiny through a combination of science, observation, and ritual. And you've done it all with a clear and open mind, a stark contrast to your first bewildered hours here. You decide to find a quiet place for reflection, perhaps a public garden if there is one nearby. You imagine the elaborate gardens described in ancient texts, oases of calm amidst the bustling city. Even if the hanging gardens were a myth, the Babylonians undoubtedly cultivated smaller, private gardens for beauty and solace. You long for a moment of quiet contemplation, a chance to process all the incredible knowledge you've absorbed. You also wouldn't mind a cool drink. You find a small, shaded courtyard, its modest size compensated by a trickling fountain and a few fragrant jasmine bushes. You sit on a low stone bench, closing your eyes and letting the gentle sounds wash over you. You reflect on the interconnectedness of all aspects of Babylonian life, their religion, their science, their daily routines, and even their attempts at curing a hangover. It was a holistic worldview, where everything was connected, and every action had a consequence, both earthly and divine. And you're just glad you experienced the consequences without a lasting impact. You stir from your contemplation, feeling refreshed. The sun is now high and the air is warm, but the shade provides welcome relief. You feel a deep sense of appreciation for the ingenuity and complexity of this ancient civilization. They built monumental structures, developed sophisticated systems of writing and law, and pursued knowledge with an impressive fervor. And they did it all with a remarkably human touch, complete with their own quirks, superstitions, and yes, their own methods for dealing with the morning after a good time. It's a testament to the enduring human spirit and its relentless quest for understanding and comfort. You slowly rise, ready to continue your exploration or perhaps find a quiet place for an evening meal. The day has been rich with discovery, delving into the intellectual and spiritual heart of Babylon. You've seen the rigorous pursuit of knowledge, the blending of magic and medicine, and the deep-seated beliefs that shaped their world. And you've done it all with a clear head, a privilege you certainly didn't have on your first morning here. You smile, thinking how far you've come from that initial, groggy state. As twilight descends, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple, you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling. The city lights begin to twinkle, and the sounds of evening leisure fill the air. You hear the distant strains of music, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle laughter of children. It's a comforting symphony of life, a reminder that even in an ancient empire, the simple joys of human connection endured, and you're glad you got to experience them fully, without a headache. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The day's revelations about Babylonian intellect and spirituality swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The echoes of ancient knowledge and the comfort of a clear mind will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully, intellectually, and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the serene quiet of the Babylonian dawn, a tranquility that has become familiar and comforting. The air is still, the light soft, and the distant sounds of the city's awakening are a gentle lullaby. Your mind is clear, your body refreshed, and the feeling of being an integral part of this ancient landscape deepens with each passing day. You stretch, a slow, deliberate movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare to immerse yourself further into the social fabric of Babylon. Today, you'll focus on their daily routines, their leisure activities, and the simple pleasures that punctuated their lives beyond just the grand feasts. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to warm the rooftops. You decide to head towards the communal bathhouses, a vital part of Babylonian hygiene and social life. You recall that personal cleanliness was highly valued, and these public bathhouses were not just for washing, but also for socializing and relaxing. You imagine the steam, the chatter, and the sense of communal well-being, and you're pretty sure they had a good scrub for that lingering eau de fermentation. You chuckle softly. As you walk, the streets are still relatively quiet, save for a few early risers heading to their work. You pass by small shops already preparing for the day, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the earthy smell of clay and the faint sweetness of dates. You notice the efficient layout of the city, the narrow, winding streets designed to provide shade and a sense of intimacy. It's a contrast to the grand processional ways you've seen, highlighting the practical nature of Babylonian urban planning. You wonder if they ever had traffic jams, or if everyone simply flowed like water. You arrive at a bustling yet orderly public bathhouse. Steam rises from large basins, and the sound of splashing water and gentle chatter fills the air. People are washing, conversing, and generally enjoying the communal atmosphere. You recall a mainstream historical fact that the Babylonians developed sophisticated plumbing and drainage systems, a testament to their engineering skills and their commitment to public health. These bathhouses, while not as elaborate as Roman baths, were vital for maintaining hygiene in a hot, dusty climate. You imagine how refreshing a cool dip would be after a long, hot day of labor. You consider the social aspect of the bathhouse. It's clearly a place for gossip, news exchange, and informal gatherings. You see friends laughing, children splashing, and older individuals quietly contemplating. It's a reminder that even in ancient times, people sought connection and companionship in their daily routines. You wonder if they ever discussed their hangover cures here. Oh, my dear friend, the honey and olive oil worked wonders, and a good soak helps flush out the lingering shame. You suppress a smile. You then observe a group of men gathered in a shaded corner, intently playing a board game. It looks like the royal game of a strategic game that was popular throughout Mesopotamia. You recall that archaeological excavations have uncovered many game boards and pieces, indicating its widespread appeal. It's a quirky tidbit that this game involved dice and strategic movement, and historians still debate some of the exact rules, but its enduring popularity speaks to the human love for challenge and intellectual stimulation. You consider how universal the desire for games and entertainment is, whether it's a complex board game or a simple game of knucklebones. You also wonder if there were any side bets involved. Probably. As you continue your exploration of Babylonian leisure, you recall another fascinating aspect, their love for music and poetry. You remember the musicians from your first night, their instruments creating a lively atmosphere. You recall hearing about epic poems like Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation myth, and the Epic of Gilgamesh. These weren't just literary works. They were often recited, performed, and set to music. It's a scholarly debate whether all performances were formal, or if everyday people also composed and sang their own songs, perhaps even simple ballads about their daily lives, or a particularly tough day at work, or even a song about a terrible hangover. You imagine a group of friends gathered in a courtyard in the evening, one strumming a lute, another reciting a poem, their voices blending under the starlit sky. It's a scene of simple, profound human connection, a reminder that joy and entertainment don't always require grand spectacles. Sometimes it's just a shared moment, a story, a song. And you're pretty sure that a good performance could even make you forget a lingering headache, at least for a little while. You briefly hum a tune, feeling the rhythm of the ancient world. You then decide to visit one of Babylon's famous gardens. Even if it's not the mythical hanging gardens, you know that even smaller, private gardens were cultivated for beauty, relaxation, and perhaps for growing medicinal herbs. You imagine the fragrant blooms, the shade of the trees, and the soothing sound of flowing water. Gardens were an important part of Babylonian life, a testament to their appreciation for nature and beauty in a largely arid landscape. You imagine spending a peaceful afternoon there, reading a clay tablet, or simply enjoying the quiet. You find a small, communal garden, meticulously maintained with carefully arranged plants and a small, trickling fountain. The air is cooler here, filled with the scent of herbs and flowers. You sit on a low stone bench, feeling the warmth of the sun filtered through the leaves. The gentle gurgle of the fountain is incredibly calming. You close your eyes, letting the tranquility wash over you. You realize that even in a bustling city, moments of peace and quiet were valued, providing a necessary respite from the demands of daily life. You reflect on the various forms of entertainment available to the Babylonians. Beyond music, poetry, and board games, they also enjoyed wrestling, boxing, and even lion hunting, at least for the elite. These activities provided both spectacle and a release of energy. It's a reminder that human beings, across all eras, seek ways to entertain themselves, to challenge their bodies and minds, and to connect with others through shared experiences. And sometimes, after a strenuous activity, you might even need another one of those hangover cures. As the morning progresses into afternoon, the sun climbs higher, and the heat intensifies. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded public area, perhaps a covered marketplace, where you can observe the continuing rhythm of Babylonian life while staying cool. You realize that adapting to the climate was a crucial part of daily existence, and their architectural choices, like narrow streets and courtyards, were often designed with this in mind. They were masters of passive cooling, long before air conditioning was even a distant dream. You find a covered section of the market, where the air is noticeably cooler. You sit on a low stool, observing the lively commerce around you. Merchants haggle, shoppers inspect goods, and the air is filled with the sounds of daily exchange. You feel completely at ease, no longer an outsider, but a quiet, appreciative observer of this vibrant ancient world. You've seen their grand achievements, their daily routines, and now their leisure activities, and you realize that despite the passage of millennia, many human desires remain constant. The desire for connection, for entertainment, and for a good, clear head. You lean back, feeling a gentle drowsiness begin to creep in, a comfortable lull after a morning of observation. The sounds of the market, once a cacophony, now blend into a soothing hum. You close your eyes, letting the quiet rhythm of the ancient world wash over you. You've truly immersed yourself in the social fabric of Babylon, seeing the ordinary moments that made up their extraordinary lives. And you've done it all with a clear mind and a sense of quiet wonder, a true testament to the power of recovery. You stir from your comfortable state, feeling refreshed and ready for an evening stroll. The sun is beginning its descent, casting long, soft shadows across the city. The air is cooler, and the light is golden. You decide to take one last walk along the river to watch the sunset over the Euphrates, a sight that has remained unchanged for thousands of years. You imagine countless generations of Babylonians watching the same spectacle, finding peace and beauty in its timeless rhythm. And you bet some of them were thinking, man, I'm glad I don't have a hangover for this. As you make your way to the river, you hear the distant strains of music, perhaps a private gathering or a small festival. It's a reminder of the enduring joy and celebration that was a part of Babylonian life, despite its challenges. You reach the riverbank, and the sight that greets you is truly breathtaking. The sky is ablaze with color, reflecting in the murky waters of the Euphrates. It's a moment of profound beauty and tranquility, a perfect end to a day of exploration. You feel a deep sense of contentment, a quiet appreciation for the opportunity to witness such timeless splendor. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylon, its communal bathhouses, its board games, its music, its gardens, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian life will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully, socially, and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the familiar, comforting sounds of the Babylonian dawn, a gentle symphony of chirping birds, and the distant murmur of the city stirring to life. The air is cool and refreshing, carrying the faint, sweet scent of dates and the earthy aroma of damp clay. You feel completely integrated into the rhythm of this ancient world. The initial shock of your arrival long faded, replaced by a quiet appreciation for its nuances. You stretch, a slow, deliberate movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare to delve into an even deeper layer of Babylonian life, their economic systems, their trade networks, and the incredible ingenuity behind their thriving commercial empire. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the rooftops, casting long, dramatic shadows. You decide to head towards the bustling docks of the Euphrates, eager to witness the heart of Babylon's economic power. You recall that the rivers were not just sources of water. They were vital arteries of trade, connecting Babylon to distant lands and bringing in a wealth of goods. You imagine the myriad of boats laden with exotic cargo, making their way to and from this great city, and you wonder if any of them carried supplies for a morning after a big party. Probably. As you walk, the streets are already more active than usual, a testament to the early start of commerce. You pass by small workshops where artisans are already at work, the clang of metal on metal mingling with the rhythmic tap of a stone carver. You notice the efficient flow of goods, with porters carrying heavy loads on their backs or guiding donkeys laden with baskets. It's a vibrant scene of industry and purpose, a clear indication of Babylon's economic vitality. You chuckle softly, thinking about how many steps you've taken here and how many ancient calories you've burned. You arrive at the bustling docks, a scene of controlled chaos. Boats of all shapes and sizes are moored along the banks, their sails furled, their crews busily unloading or loading cargo. The air is thick with the smell of fish, spices, and the unique scent of bitumen used to waterproof the boats. You see sacks of grain, bundles of textiles, massive logs of cedar from distant lands, and pottery from various regions. A mainstream historical fact is that Babylon was a major center of international trade, importing timber, metals, and precious stones, and exporting textiles, dates, and manufactured goods. Its strategic location on the Euphrates made it a hub for goods traveling between Mesopotamia, the Levant, and beyond. You observe the merchants, their voices raised in negotiations, their gestures animated. You see scribes meticulously recording transactions on clay tablets, each sale and purchase documented with precision. The Babylonians developed sophisticated accounting systems using cuneiform to track inventory, debts, and payments. It's a fascinating example of their administrative genius. You wonder if they ever had a miscalculation that led to a very awkward conversation, like, "Wait, I paid you in 30 jars of olive oil, not 29. You're pretty sure that would ruin anyone's morning, hangover or not." You then notice a money changer's stall, where metal ingots and rings of various weights are being exchanged. Silver was a common medium of exchange, and the accuracy of weights was crucial for fair trade. You recall a scholarly debate about the extent to which a true money economy existed in Babylon versus a system based primarily on barter and silver as a standardized commodity. Was it a fully monetary system, or something in between? The complexity of their economic records suggests a high degree of sophistication, regardless of the exact definition. You imagine trying to pay for something with a handful of silver rings and hoping you have the right weight. You see a group of laborers hauling heavy sacks, their muscles straining with the effort. Their work is arduous, but essential to the flow of goods. You reflect on the social hierarchy of Babylon, with slaves, common laborers, artisans, merchants, priests, and the ruling elite. Each played a vital role in the functioning of the empire. You wonder what their work-life balance was like, especially after a particularly lively festival. Probably not a lot of work-from-home options for a Babylonian laborer. You briefly consider offering to help, but then remember your delicate ancient hands are more accustomed to lighter tasks, like perhaps holding a hangover remedy. You then observe a small group of traders from a distant land, easily identifiable by their distinct clothing and features. They are exchanging goods with a Babylonian merchant, their communication a mix of gestures and perhaps a common trade language. It's a quirky tidbit that a form of Akkadian, the language of Babylon, served as a lingua franca for trade across the ancient Near East, facilitating communication between diverse peoples. You imagine the vibrant mix of cultures and languages that must have converged in Babylon, making it a true melting pot of the ancient world. You chuckle softly, thinking about the ancient equivalent of a universal translator, probably just a very patient merchant. As you continue your exploration of the docks, you notice the specialized nature of some of the goods. There are stalls selling finely crafted jewelry, intricately carved wood, and even exotic animals. Babylon was not just a hub for basic commodities, it was also a center for luxury goods, catering to the wealthy elite. You admire a necklace of lapis lazuli, its deep blue color mesmerizing. You recall that lapis was imported from Afghanistan, a testament to the vast reach of Babylonian trade networks. It's truly incredible how far their influence extended, all powered by commerce. The sun is climbing higher now, and the heat is beginning to intensify. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area, perhaps a local inn or tavern near the docks, where you can observe the lively commercial scene from a comfortable distance. You imagine the various types of people who frequented such establishments: merchants celebrating a successful deal, sailors on shore leave, and perhaps even a few individuals nursing the remnants of a previous night's revelry. You smile, thinking that some things truly never change. You find a small, open-air inn, its entrance shaded by a reed awning. You sit on a low stool, ordering a simple barley water, cool and refreshing. You observe the diverse crowd around you, a microcosm of Babylon's commercial life. You hear snippets of conversations about prices, shipments, and market trends. It's a vibrant, dynamic environment, a clear indication of the energy that powered this ancient empire. You feel a deep sense of connection to this historical moment, witnessing the very pulse of an ancient economy. You reflect on the scholarly debates about the role of the state versus private enterprise in Babylonian commerce. While temples and the palace certainly played a significant role in large-scale trade, there was also a thriving private sector, with individual merchants and entrepreneurs. How much autonomy did these private traders truly have? It's a complex question, trying to understand the balance between centralized control and individual initiative in an ancient economy. You imagine trying to start a small business in ancient Babylon, probably needing a lot of permits, and perhaps a very good omen from a diviner. As the afternoon progresses, a gentle drowsiness begins to settle over you, a comfortable lull. The sounds of the inn, once a lively hum, soften into a pleasant drone. You close your eyes, letting the quiet rhythm of ancient commerce wash over you. You've truly immersed yourself in the economic heart of Babylon, seeing the intricate networks of trade, the meticulous accounting, and the sheer human effort that sustained this powerful empire. And you've done it all with a clear mind and a growing appreciation for their ingenuity. You stir from your comfortable state, feeling refreshed and ready for an evening stroll. The sun is beginning its descent, casting long, soft shadows across the city. The air is cooler, and the light is golden. You decide to take one last walk along the docks, to watch the evening calm settle over the river, a stark contrast to the morning's frenetic activity. You imagine the boats, now silent, waiting for the next day's journey, carrying the economic lifeblood of Babylon across the vast waterways. And you're pretty sure they never complained about getting too much cargo. As you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling, you hear the distant sounds of music and laughter, perhaps from a private celebration or a small gathering of friends. It's a reminder that even in a city driven by commerce, there was always time for leisure and connection. You feel a deep sense of contentment, a quiet satisfaction with the day's discoveries. You've seen Babylon not just as a center of grand monuments, but as a thriving economic engine, powered by the ingenuity and hard work of its people. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylon, its bustling docks, its meticulous scribes, its diverse goods, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian commerce will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully, economically, and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the serene quiet of another Babylonian dawn, a tranquility that has become an intrinsic part of your experience here. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the familiar sense of dry earth, distant cooking fires, and the subtle sweetness of date palms. Your mind is clear, your body completely rested, and the initial disorientation of your arrival feels like a lifetime ago. You stretch, a slow, deliberate movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare to delve into a more personal aspect of Babylonian life. Their family structures, their daily domestic routines, and the role of women and children in this ancient society. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the rooftops, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and pink. You decide to wander through the residential areas, observing the quiet rhythm of family life as it begins to unfold. You're curious about the roles within the household, the chores, the simple interactions that formed the bedrock of Babylonian society. You imagine mothers preparing meals, children playing, and families gathering in their courtyards. And you're pretty sure that sometimes a Babylonian parent just needed 5 minutes of quiet, just like today. You chuckle softly. As you walk, the streets are still relatively quiet, but you begin to hear the sounds of domestic activity. The gentle clatter of pottery, the murmur of voices, the rhythmic thump of a grinding stone. You pass by homes where smoke is beginning to curl from small vents, indicating the preparation of the morning meal. You notice the simple yet effective design of the houses, oriented to provide shade and a private space for the family. A mainstream historical fact is that the family was the fundamental unit of Babylonian society, with a strong emphasis on patriarchal authority, but with women often holding significant roles within the household and in certain economic activities. You then observe a young woman sweeping her courtyard with a broom made of reeds, her movements fluid and practiced. Inside, you can glimpse children playing with simple clay toys. You realize how much of daily life revolved around the home, a self-contained unit for much of its activity. Women managed the household, prepared food, raised children, and often engaged in crafts like weaving or brewing beer for family consumption. You muse that the women probably had their own secret hangover remedies, perhaps even more effective than the swallow's beak concoction. Passed down from generation to generation, quietly, efficiently. You pass by a communal well where a few women are already drawing water, their conversations low and steady. It's a gathering point, a place for social interaction and the exchange of news and gossip. You remember the importance of water, not just for drinking, but for cooking, washing, and cleaning. It was a constant daily task, connecting all members of the community. You wonder if they ever had a queue for the well, or if there was a polite system of waiting. Probably the latter, because nobody likes a thirsty neighbor. You then notice a group of older children, perhaps teenagers, helping their parents with various tasks. A boy is tending to a small flock of sheep in a nearby enclosure, while a girl is helping her mother grind grain. Children in Babylon, like in many ancient societies, were expected to contribute to the household economy from a young age. It's a quirky tidbit that Babylonian children played with toys like miniature chariots, dolls, and small animals made of clay. Much like children today, reminding you that play is a universal language. You smile, watching their youthful energy, so different from your first weary morning here. You consider the scholarly debate around the status of women in Babylonian society. While patriarchal, women had certain legal rights, could own property, engage in business, and even initiate divorce under certain circumstances. However, their primary role was often defined by their position within the family. How much autonomy did they truly possess? It's a complex question, trying to understand the nuances of ancient gender roles, far beyond simple modern interpretations. You imagine a Babylonian woman, strong and capable, managing her household, her business, and perhaps discreetly brewing a particularly potent hangover cure for her husband. You then observe a small group of elderly individuals gathered in a shaded courtyard, sharing stories and perhaps a simple meal. Respect for elders was a cornerstone of Babylonian society, and their wisdom and experience were highly valued. They were the keepers of tradition, the storytellers, and often the informal advisors of the community. You think about the countless stories they must have told about battles, triumphs, daily life, and perhaps the epic hangovers of their youth. You chuckle softly. As the morning progresses, the sun climbs higher, bringing with it the familiar warmth of the day. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area, perhaps a public garden if one is nearby, where you can continue to observe the quieter rhythms of family life. You imagine the simple pleasures of a Babylonian family, a shared meal, a quiet evening under the stars, the laughter of children. These small moments, you realize, formed the true richness of their lives, far beyond the grand monuments and political intrigues. You find a small, well-tended garden, its entrance open to the street. Inside, a mother is teaching her child to count using small pebbles, their voices soft and rhythmic. You sit on a low bench, enjoying the cool stillness and the gentle sounds of their lesson. It's a beautiful moment of intergenerational connection, a reminder that the bonds of family are timeless. You feel a deep sense of peace, a quiet appreciation for the simplicity and profound depth of these daily interactions. And you're glad you got to experience them in full, without a headache. You reflect on the different types of families in Babylon, extended families living together, nuclear families, and even instances of adoption. The concept of family was fluid, adapting to economic and social needs. It's a mainstream historical fact that adoption was common, often to ensure continuation of a lineage or to provide for orphaned children. It speaks to a society that, despite its rigid social structures, also had a strong sense of community and responsibility towards its members. You consider how remarkable it is that some of these ancient family dynamics are still recognizable today. You feel a gentle drowsiness begin to creep in, a comfortable lull. The sounds of the garden, the soft voices, the distant chirping of birds, all blend into a soothing hum. You close your eyes, letting the quiet rhythm of ancient family life wash over you. You've truly immersed yourself in the domestic heart of Babylon, seeing the intricate bonds, the daily routines, and the simple joys that formed the bedrock of their society. And you've done it all with a clear mind and a growing appreciation for their enduring humanity. You stir from your comfortable state, feeling refreshed and ready for an evening stroll. The sun is beginning its descent, casting long soft shadows across the city. The air is cooler, and the light is golden. You decide to take one last walk through the residential streets, watching as families gather for their evening meals. The aroma of roasted grains and vegetables filling the air. You hear the sounds of laughter and conversation, a comforting symphony of daily life. You feel a deep sense of contentment, a quiet satisfaction with the day's discoveries. You've seen Babylon not just as a city of grand monuments, but as a collection of countless individual homes, each a universe of human experience. As you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling, you see children playing in the fading light, their energy still boundless. You smile, thinking about the universal nature of childhood, the innocence and joy that transcends time. You feel a quiet warmth spread through you, a sense of connection to these ancient lives. You've truly experienced the heart of Babylon, its people, its families, and its enduring spirit. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylonian homes, its families, its children, its domestic routines, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian family life will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully, personally, and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the serene quiet of another Babylonian dawn, a tranquility that has become profoundly comforting. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the familiar sense of dry earth, distant cooking fires, and the subtle sweetness of date palms. Your mind is clear, your body completely rested, and the initial disorientation of your arrival feels like a distant dream, replaced by a deep sense of belonging in this ancient landscape. You stretch, a slow, deliberate movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare to delve into an even more specialized aspect of Babylonian life, their incredible advancements in astronomy and mathematics, and how these rigorous pursuits intertwined with their spiritual beliefs. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the highest points of the ziggurats, painting them in soft, golden hues. You decide to head towards the great temple complex dedicated to Marduk, the patron god of Babylon. It was within these sacred precincts that many of the most profound astronomical observations were made, often by priests who were also skilled mathematicians. You imagine the immense dedication required to chart the heavens night after night, meticulously recording the movements of stars and planets. And you're pretty sure they did it all without the aid of coffee, which is an achievement in itself. You chuckle softly. As you walk, the streets are still relatively quiet, but you begin to see more scholars and priests making their way towards the temple complex, their faces often etched with a scholarly intensity. You pass by small shops selling astronomical instruments, simple yet effective tools for observation, such as gnomons for tracking shadows and water clocks for measuring time. You notice the efficient flow of people, a testament to the structured nature of Babylonian society, where even intellectual pursuits had their designated spaces. You wonder if they ever had an astronomy club for enthusiasts. You arrive at the outer courtyard of the temple complex, its sheer size and grandeur breathtaking. The towering ziggurat of Itemenanki dominates the skyline, a staircase to the heavens. You recall a mainstream historical fact that the Babylonians were incredibly advanced astronomers, developing sophisticated methods for predicting lunar and solar eclipses, tracking planetary movements, and creating detailed calendars. Their observations laid the groundwork for much of later Greek and Hellenistic astronomy. It's a testament to their dedication to empirical observation, even if their ultimate goal was often astrological prediction. You then observe a group of scribes within a shaded colonnade, meticulously copying astronomical tables onto clay tablets. These tables were incredibly complex, listing the positions of celestial bodies over long periods. You see their precise cuneiform, each wedge a calculated mark. You recall a scholarly debate about whether their astronomical knowledge was purely empirical, or if it was driven by a desire to interpret omens for the king and the state. Was it science for science's sake, or science in service of divination? The truth, you suspect, lies somewhere in the middle, a fascinating blend of both. You briefly imagine trying to decipher one of those tablets yourself, probably just seeing a lot of very precise squiggles. You move to a quieter area, observing a mathematician at work, using counting boards and small tokens to solve complex problems. The Babylonians developed a base 60 numerical system, which is still evident today in our division of circles into 360 degrees and hours into 60 minutes. It's a quirky tidbit that they were also adept at algebra, solving quadratic equations long before the Greeks or Egyptians. You are amazed by the sophistication of their mathematical understanding. Developed without the benefit of zero as a placeholder, though they had a symbol for an empty place value. You joke to yourself that their math was probably complicated enough to give you a headache without the aid of too much date wine. You consider the connection between their mathematics and their astronomy. Precise calculations were essential for accurate astronomical predictions. It was a symbiotic relationship where advancements in one field fueled progress in the other. You imagine the late-night discussions between astronomers and mathematicians, poring over tablets, debating the movements of the stars, and perhaps, occasionally, complaining about the difficulty of their calculations. And you're pretty sure they never used calculators. You then observe a group of priests performing a ritual beneath a clear morning sky, their eyes occasionally glancing skyward. You recall that their astronomical observations were often linked to omens and prophecies. The movements of the planets were believed to influence human events, and understanding these movements was crucial for interpreting divine will. It's a fascinating blend of scientific rigor and spiritual belief, a characteristic of much ancient thought. You wonder if a bad omen meant a particularly potent hangover was coming. Probably. As you continue your exploration of this intellectual and spiritual heart of Babylon, you pass by a specialized library, not just for literary texts, but specifically for astronomical and mathematical tablets. You imagine the vast collection of knowledge contained within, centuries of observations and calculations etched into clay. It's a testament to their dedication to accumulating and preserving knowledge, a true intellectual legacy. You briefly consider how much a Babylonian librarian would appreciate a modern spreadsheet. The sun is climbing higher now, and the heat is beginning to intensify. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area, perhaps a quiet courtyard within the temple complex, where you can reflect on the incredible intellectual achievements of the Babylonians. You imagine the sense of wonder they must have felt, charting the vastness of the cosmos with their relatively simple tools, deriving complex mathematical principles from their observations. It's truly humbling to witness the foundations of scientific inquiry laid in such an ancient setting. You find a small, secluded courtyard, shaded by a large fig tree. The air is cool and still, and the distant sounds of the city are a gentle murmur. You sit on a low stone bench, closing your eyes and letting the tranquility wash over you. You reflect on the timeless human quest for understanding, the desire to make sense of the universe, whether through scientific observation, mathematical reasoning, or spiritual interpretation. The Babylonians, you realize, were pioneers in this enduring pursuit, leaving an indelible mark on the history of human thought. You stir from your contemplation, feeling refreshed and invigorated. The sun is now high, marking the approach of midday. You feel a deep sense of appreciation for the intellect and curiosity of the ancient Babylonians. They built monumental structures, developed sophisticated systems of writing and law, and, most remarkably, charted the heavens with a precision that was unparalleled for their time. And they did it all without the benefit of a single headache, at least not during their observations, you hope. You slowly rise, ready to continue your exploration, or perhaps find a quiet place for an evening meal. The day has been rich with discovery, delving into the astronomical and mathematical heart of Babylon. You've seen the rigorous pursuit of knowledge, the blending of science and spirituality, and the deep-seated curiosity that drove their intellectual endeavors. And you've done it all with a clear head, a privilege you certainly didn't have on your first morning here. You smile, thinking how far you've come from that initial, groggy state. As twilight descends, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple, you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling. The city lights begin to twinkle, and the first stars emerge in the vast Mesopotamian sky, you look up, feeling a renewed sense of wonder at the same celestial bodies that the ancient Babylonians meticulously observed thousands of years ago. It's a powerful connection, a reminder of the enduring human fascination with the cosmos, and you're glad you got to share in that fascination, clearly and completely. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylonian observatories, its mathematical tablets, its priestly astronomers, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian knowledge and the comfort of a clear mind will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully, intellectually, and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the gentle caress of the Babylonian pre-dawn, a cool, refreshing breeze that carries the familiar sense of dry earth, distant cooking fires, and the subtle sweetness of date palms. Your mind is clear, your body completely rested, and the feeling of being intimately connected to this ancient landscape has deepened into a profound sense of peace. You stretch, a slow, luxurious movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare to embark on a more reflective journey, examining the art, architecture, and enduring legacy of Babylon, appreciating how these grand achievements fit into the tapestry of their daily lives. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the highest points of the ziggurats, painting them in soft, golden hues. You decide to wander towards the grand processional way and the imposing Ishtar Gate, not just to admire their majesty, but to consider the symbolism and meaning embedded within their very construction. You're curious about how these monumental works of art and engineering communicated power, divinity, and cultural identity to the people of Babylon, and you're pretty sure they never thought this would look great on a postcard. You chuckle softly as you walk. The streets are still relatively quiet, but you begin to see more individuals making their way towards the city's monumental centers, perhaps for early morning rituals or simply to admire the rising sun. You pass by small workshops where artisans are already at work, creating intricate carvings and delicate pottery. You notice the efficient flow of people, a testament to the structured nature of Babylonian society, where even artistic endeavors had their designated spaces. You wonder if they ever had art critics, or if everyone just politely appreciated everything. You arrive at the grand processional way, a wide, paved road leading to the Ishtar Gate and the main temple complex. It's flanked by high walls adorned with magnificent glazed brick reliefs of lions, a symbol of the goddess Ishtar, and mythical creatures. It's truly breathtaking, a vibrant display of Babylonian artistry and power. A mainstream historical fact is that the Ishtar Gate and the processional way were constructed during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar II, renowned for his monumental building projects, and were designed to impress visitors and symbolize the might and divine favor of Babylon. You then observe the meticulous craftsmanship of the glazed bricks, each animal depicted with incredible detail and a vibrant, almost luminous color. You recall a scholarly debate about the exact techniques used to achieve such vivid and durable glazes, a secret that has fascinated archaeologists for centuries. How did they achieve such consistent colors and intricate patterns on such a massive scale? It's a testament to their advanced knowledge of chemistry and materials science. You briefly imagine trying to create a single glazed brick yourself, probably ending up with a very lumpy, colorless mess. You move closer to the Ishtar Gate, marveling at the colossal size and the powerful imagery. The lions and dragons seem to leap from the walls, guardians of the city and symbols of its strength. You consider the psychological impact these images must have had on both residents and visitors. They were not just decorations. They were statements of power, divine protection, and cultural pride. You joke to yourself that they probably had no entry signs too, but just in case, they added a very fierce lion. You then notice a quirky tidbit about some of the smaller architectural details, the use of recessed panels and projecting pilasters on buildings, creating a subtle play of light and shadow. This wasn't just for aesthetic appeal. It also served a practical purpose in breaking up the monotonous surfaces of mud brick walls and providing a measure of passive cooling. It's a subtle yet ingenious design choice that reveals their pragmatic approach to even artistic elements. You briefly consider designing your own house in ancient Babylonian style, but then remember the lack of central heating. As you continue your exploration of Babylon's art and architecture, you recall their skill in monumental sculpture. Though much of it was destroyed over time, they crafted impressive statues of gods, kings, and mythological figures, often from imported stone. You imagine the immense effort required to transport and carve these massive pieces, a testament to their engineering and artistic prowess. You also realize that much of their art, unlike some later cultures, was integrated into their architecture, serving a functional or symbolic purpose rather than being purely decorative. You consider the scholarly debate surrounding the influence of Babylonian art on later cultures. How much did their monumental architecture, their relief sculptures, and their use of glazed bricks inspire the Persians, Greeks, and others? It's a complex question, tracing the threads of artistic influence across ancient civilizations. There's no doubt that Babylon, as a major power, left a significant artistic footprint on the ancient world. You imagine an ancient architect sketching ideas on a clay tablet, perhaps inspired by a visit to Babylon. The sun is climbing higher now, and the heat is beginning to intensify. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area, perhaps a public square near the temple, where you can observe the continuing rhythm of Babylonian life framed by their impressive architecture. You realize that these grand structures were not just static monuments. They were living spaces integral to the daily rituals, processions, and social gatherings of the city. They truly blended the sacred and the profane. You find a shaded spot in a spacious courtyard, surrounded by imposing temple walls. The air is cooler here, and the sounds of the city, though present, are somewhat muted. You sit on a low stone bench, closing your eyes and letting the grandeur of the surroundings wash over you. You reflect on the enduring legacy of Babylonian art and architecture, a testament to their creativity, their engineering skill, and their profound understanding of symbolism. They built not just cities, but statements, expressions of their beliefs and their power, meant to last for eternity. And you're glad you got to witness them in person, without a headache. You stir from your contemplation, feeling refreshed and invigorated. The sun is now high, marking the approach of midday. You feel a deep sense of appreciation for the artistry and vision of the ancient Babylonians. They built cities that were not just functional, but also incredibly beautiful and meaningful, weaving together their religious beliefs, their political power, and their aesthetic sensibilities into a cohesive whole. And they did it all, you hope, without too many hangovers getting in the way of their master plans. You smile. You slowly rise, ready to continue your exploration, or perhaps find a quiet place for an evening meal. The day has been rich with discovery, delving into the artistic and architectural heart of Babylon. You've seen the monumental scale of their creations, the meticulous detail of their craftsmanship, and the powerful symbolism embedded within their structures. And you've done it all with a clear mind, a privilege you certainly didn't have on your first morning here. You smile, thinking how far you've come from that initial, bewildered state, As twilight descends, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple, you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling. The city lights begin to twinkle, and the forms of the buildings soften in the fading light, becoming almost ethereal. You hear the distant strains of music, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle laughter of children. It's a comforting symphony of life, a reminder that even amidst grand artistic and architectural achievements, the simple joys of human connection endured. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylon's majestic gates, its vibrant reliefs, its monumental ziggurats, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian art and architecture will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully, artistically and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the comforting rhythm of another Babylonian dawn, the cool air carrying the familiar sense of dry earth, distant cooking fires, and the sweet perfume of date palms. Your mind is clear, your body deeply rested, and the ancient world around you feels less like a historical setting and more like a vibrant, living reality. You stretch, a slow, luxurious movement that speaks of complete contentment, and prepare to delve into an even more nuanced aspect of Babylonian life, their daily rituals, both religious and secular, and how these practices provided structure and meaning to their existence. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the rooftops, painting them in soft, golden hues. You decide to wander towards the smaller neighborhood temples, curious to observe the morning devotions of ordinary people. You recall that while the grand ziggurats served the state and major deities, smaller temples and household shrines were vital for individual piety and daily offerings. You imagine the quiet reverence, the murmuring prayers, and the humble offerings, and you're pretty sure that sometimes a prayer was just for a bit of luck, or maybe a quick recovery from a particularly bad decision. You chuckle softly. As you walk, the streets are still relatively quiet, but you begin to see more individuals making their way towards the temples, their faces often serene and contemplative. You pass by small shops already preparing for the day, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the earthy smell of clay and the faint sweetness of dates. You notice the efficient flow of people, a testament to the structured nature of Babylonian society, where even spiritual practices had their designated spaces. You wonder if they ever had spiritual advisors for common dilemmas. You arrive at a small, unassuming temple dedicated to a lesser-known deity, perhaps a household god or a protector of a specific craft. Inside, a few individuals are making offerings of grain or incense, their heads bowed in prayer. You observe the simple yet profound sincerity of their devotion. You recall a mainstream historical fact that Babylonian religion was highly polytheistic, with a vast pantheon of gods and goddesses associated with various aspects of nature, human life, and the cosmos. Daily offerings and rituals were believed to appease these deities and ensure their favor, bringing prosperity and protection. You then notice a priest performing a purification ritual, carefully sprinkling water from a small vessel. You recall a scholarly debate about the exact meaning and efficacy of these purification rites. Were they purely symbolic, or were they believed to have a genuine magical effect? And how much did they contribute to public hygiene, even if inadvertently? The blend of spiritual belief and practical outcome is often a fascinating aspect of ancient practices. You briefly imagine a ritual specifically for purifying your body of too much date wine. That would be a popular one. You move to a quieter area, observing an individual lighting a small oil lamp at a household shrine. This simple act of devotion, performed daily in countless homes, speaks to the personal nature of Babylonian piety. You consider the countless small rituals that punctuated their days, from morning prayers to evening offerings, from blessing a meal to seeking omens before a journey. These rituals provided a sense of order, meaning, and connection to the divine in a world that could often be unpredictable. You joke to yourself that they probably had a ritual for Monday mornings. You then observe a quirky tidbit about some of their more unusual daily rituals. The use of specific incantations or amulets to ward off bad dreams or negative influences. Sleep was believed to be a vulnerable state, and protective rituals were often performed before going to bed. You imagine a Babylonian whispering an incantation to ensure a night free of nightmares, or perhaps a night free of embarrassing memories from the previous day's festivities. You chuckle softly. It's a reminder that even ancient people had their anxieties and sought comfort in routine and ritual. As you continue your exploration of Babylonian daily rituals, you recall their elaborate calendrical system, which dictated agricultural practices, religious festivals, and even favorable days for certain activities. Timekeeping was not just about measuring hours. It was about aligning human life with the cosmic order, ensuring harmony and prosperity. It's a testament to their precision and their belief in a structured universe. You imagine a Babylonian farmer checking his calendar, thinking, okay, today's a good day for planting barley, but definitely not a good day for starting a new business venture, and maybe avoid parties. You consider the scholarly debate surrounding the degree of individual freedom versus societal obligation in Babylonian life. How much of their daily routines and rituals were freely chosen, and how much were dictated by social norms, religious beliefs, and state mandates? It's a complex question, trying to understand the balance between personal agency and collective identity in an ancient society. You imagine a Babylonian trying to decide whether to attend a religious festival or just stay home and relax. Probably a dilemma as old as time. The sun is climbing higher now, and the heat is beginning to intensify. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area, perhaps a public square near a well, where you can observe the continuing rhythm of Babylonian daily life and its embedded rituals. You realize that these rituals, whether grand or humble, were not just empty gestures. They were deeply meaningful practices that reinforced community bonds, expressed devotion, and provided a sense of control in a world governed by powerful forces. And you're glad you got to observe them, clearly and completely. You find a shaded spot in a bustling public square, where a well provides cool water. The air is cooler here, and the sounds of the city, though present, are a comforting hum. You sit on a low stone bench, closing your eyes and letting the rhythmic sounds of daily life wash over you. You reflect on the enduring human need for meaning and structure, the ways in which people create rituals to mark time, to connect with the divine, and to navigate the uncertainties of existence. The Babylonians, you realize, were masters of this art, creating a rich tapestry of daily routines and profound spiritual practices. You stir from your contemplation, feeling refreshed and invigorated. The sun is now high, marking the approach of midday. You feel a deep sense of appreciation for the depth and complexity of ancient Babylonian daily life. Beyond just the grand narratives of kings and empires, you've seen how their lives were infused with meaning through countless small rituals and communal practices. And you've done it all, thankfully, without needing to perform any purification rites for a lingering headache. You smile. You slowly rise, ready to continue your exploration or perhaps find a quiet place for an evening meal. The day has been rich with discovery, delving into the daily rituals, both sacred and secular, that shaped Babylonian existence. You've seen the quiet devotion of individuals, the communal spirit of shared practices, and the profound ways in which their beliefs informed their every action. And you've done it all with a clear mind, a privilege you certainly didn't have on your first morning here. You smile, thinking how far you've come from that initial, bewildered state. As twilight descends, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple, you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling. The city lights begin to twinkle, and the sounds of evening leisure fill the air. You hear the distant strains of music, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle laughter of children. It's a comforting symphony of life, a reminder that even amidst grand religious and social structures, the simple joys of human connection endured. And you're glad you got to experience them fully, without a headache. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylonian temples, its daily offerings, its protective rituals, its structured days, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian daily rituals and the comfort of a clear mind will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully ritualistically and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the profound stillness of the Babylonian pre-dawn, a quiet that has become a deeply comforting presence. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the familiar sense of dry earth, distant cooking fires, and the subtle sweetness of date palms. Your mind is clear, your body completely rested, and the boundary between your world and this ancient one seems to have dissolved into a seamless continuity. You stretch, a slow, deliberate movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare to delve into a more challenging aspect of Babylonian life, their legal system, their concept of justice, and the ways in which societal order was maintained in a complex and hierarchical empire. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the highest points of the ziggurats, casting long, dramatic shadows. You decide to head towards the royal palace and administrative centers, where the laws were enacted and justice was dispensed. You recall that the Babylonians were renowned for their sophisticated legal codes, which governed every aspect of public and private life. You imagine the solemnity of court proceedings, the precise recording of judgments, and the sheer weight of responsibility carried by the judges. And you're pretty sure that sometimes even a judge just wanted to call in sick. You chuckle softly as you walk. The streets are still relatively quiet, but you begin to see more officials and legal scribes making their way towards the administrative buildings, their faces often serious and focused. You pass by small shops already preparing for the day, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the earthy smell of clay and the faint sweetness of dates. You notice the efficient flow of people, a testament to the structured nature of Babylonian society, where even legal matters had their designated spaces. You wonder if they had a public defender system, or if everyone was expected to argue their own case. You arrive at a large courtyard within the administrative quarter, where you see legal scribes meticulously copying laws onto clay tablets. These weren't just for record keeping. They were public displays, ensuring that everyone had access to the laws of the land. You recall a mainstream historical fact that the Code of Hammurabi, dating to the 18th century BCE, is one of the oldest deciphered legal codes in the world, famous for its an eye for an eye principle, but also containing complex provisions for contracts, family law, and property rights. It reflects a sophisticated understanding of societal order and justice. You then observe a small group of litigants presenting their cases before a local magistrate. The arguments are passionate, the witnesses sometimes hesitant, and the magistrate listens intently, his expression grave. You recall a scholarly debate about the application of these laws. Was justice truly blind, or did social status and wealth influence the outcome of a case? And how consistently were the harsh penalties of Hammurabi's code actually enforced? The complexities of applying ancient laws to real-life situations are a fascinating subject for historians. You briefly imagine yourself trying to argue a case in cuneiform, probably resulting in immediate dismissal. You move to a quieter area, observing a scribe meticulously recording a contractual agreement between two merchants. Every detail, from the quantity of goods to the terms of payment, is precisely documented on a clay tablet, sealed with their cylinder seals. This meticulous record-keeping was crucial for maintaining order and preventing disputes in a complex commercial society. It's a quirky tidbit that these legal tablets often included clauses for what would happen in case of unforeseen circumstances, like natural disasters or unexpected death, showing a remarkable foresight in their legal planning. You smile, thinking about how many modern legal documents are still just as wordy. You then observe a small group of individuals, perhaps prisoners or those awaiting judgment, being escorted by guards. It's a stark reminder that while justice was pursued, it also involved the punishment of wrongdoers. You consider the various types of penalties in Babylonian law, which ranged from fines and enslavement to physical mutilation and death, depending on the severity of the crime and the social status of the offender. It was a harsh system by modern standards, but one designed to maintain order and deter crime in a society without modern policing. You're definitely glad you didn't have any legal troubles while in ancient Babylon, especially not after that first night. As you continue your exploration of the Babylonian legal system, you recall their concept of divine justice. While there were human judges and laws, ultimately, the gods were believed to be the ultimate arbiters of right and wrong. Oaths were often sworn in the name of the gods, and divine omens could influence legal proceedings. It's a fascinating blend of human law and spiritual belief, where justice was not just a societal construct, but a cosmic one. You wonder if they ever blamed a bad judgment on a particularly unfavorable planetary alignment. Sorry, the moon just wasn't in my favor today. You consider the scholarly debate surrounding the influence of Babylonian law on later legal traditions. How much did Hammurabi's code, with its emphasis on written law and detailed precedents, inspire subsequent legal systems in the ancient world and beyond? It's a complex question, tracing the threads of legal thought across millennia. There's no doubt that Babylon, as a major power, left a significant legal footprint on the ancient world, shaping the very idea of a codified system of justice. You imagine an ancient legal scholar carefully studying Hammurabi's code, trying to interpret its nuances. The sun is climbing higher now, and the heat is beginning to intensify. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area, perhaps a quiet courtyard within the administrative quarter, where you can reflect on the complexity of Babylonian law and justice. You realize that these legal systems were not just about punishment. They were about creating a framework for societal order, protecting property, resolving disputes, and ensuring stability in a rapidly developing empire. And you're glad you got to observe them clearly and completely. You find a small, secluded courtyard shaded by a large fig tree. The air is cool and still, and the distant sounds of the city are a gentle murmur. You sit on a low stone bench, closing your eyes and letting the weight of ancient justice wash over you. You reflect on the timeless human quest for fairness and order, the desire to create a system that governs behavior and resolves conflict. The Babylonians, you realize, were pioneers in this enduring pursuit, leaving an indelible mark on the history of legal thought. You stir from your contemplation, feeling refreshed and invigorated. The sun is now high, marking the approach of midday. You feel a deep sense of appreciation for the foresight and sophistication of the ancient Babylonian legal system. They built a framework for justice that, while harsh by modern standards, provided a sense of order and predictability in a complex society. And they did it all, you hope, without too many legal hangovers getting in the way of their judgments. You smile. You slowly rise, ready to continue your exploration or perhaps find a quiet place for an evening meal. The day has been rich with discovery, delving into the legal and judicial heart of Babylon. You've seen the meticulous nature of their laws, the solemnity of their courts, and the constant effort to maintain order in a vast empire. And you've done it all with a clear mind, a privilege you certainly didn't have on your first morning here. You smile, thinking how far you've come from that initial, bewildered state. As twilight descends, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple, you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling. The city lights begin to twinkle, and the forms of the buildings soften in the fading light, becoming almost ethereal. You hear the distant strains of music, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle laughter of children. It's a comforting symphony of life, a reminder that even amidst grand legal structures, the simple joys of human connection endured. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylonian law codes, its courtrooms, its judges, its scribes, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian justice and the comfort of a clear mind will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully, legally, and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the soft, cool air of the Babylonian pre-dawn, a familiar embrace that signals another day in this remarkable ancient world. The scent of dry earth and distant cooking fires is comforting, and the subtle sweetness of date palms adds a gentle perfume to the air. Your mind is clear, your body completely rested, and the deep sense of integration with this historical landscape continues to grow. You stretch, a slow, deliberate movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare to explore an often overlooked, but crucial aspect of Babylonian life. Their military organization, their strategies for defense, and the practicalities of maintaining peace or waging war in a volatile ancient world. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the highest points of the city walls, painting them in soft, golden hues. You decide to head towards the military barracks and training grounds, located near the formidable fortifications. You recall that Babylon, despite its cultural and economic prosperity, was often engaged in conflicts with neighboring empires. Maintaining a strong military was essential for its survival and expansion. You imagine the disciplined drills, the clang of weapons, and the serious faces of the soldiers, and you're pretty sure they had very strict rules about hangovers. You chuckle softly. As you walk, the streets are still relatively quiet, but you begin to see more soldiers, identifiable by their uniforms and weaponry, making their way towards the training grounds. You pass by small shops already preparing for the day, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the earthy smell of clay and the faint sweetness of dates. You notice the efficient flow of people, a testament to the structured nature of Babylonian society, where even military matters had their designated spaces. You wonder if they had a boot camp, or if everyone just magically knew how to wield a spear. You arrive at the training grounds, a vast, open area outside the city walls. You see soldiers practicing with bows and arrows, others honing their skills with spears and shields. The air is filled with the sounds of grunts, the thud of arrows hitting targets, and the sharp commands of their officers. You recall a mainstream historical fact that the Babylonian army, particularly during the Neo-Babylonian Empire, was a formidable fighting force, well organized and equipped with effective siege machinery, which allowed them to conquer and maintain control over vast territories. Their military prowess was crucial to their imperial ambitions. You then observe a group of soldiers practicing drills in formation, their movements precise and coordinated. You recall a scholarly debate about the exact structure of the Babylonian army. How much was a standing professional army, and how much was composed of levied citizens or even foreign mercenaries? And what was the role of cavalry versus infantry in their battle strategies? The complexities of ancient military organization are a fascinating subject for historians. You briefly imagine yourself trying to keep formation, probably tripping over your own feet and accidentally poking someone with a spear. You move to a quieter area, observing a blacksmith hammering away at metal, forging arrowheads and spear tips. The rhythmic clang of his hammer is a constant presence, a reminder of the vital support systems needed for a military. You consider the logistics of supplying such a large army food, weapons, armor, and even medical care for the wounded. It's a massive undertaking, requiring incredible organization and resources. You joke to yourself that the blacksmith probably needed his own hangover cure after a particularly long day of hammering. You then notice a quirky tidbit about some of their military strategies, the use of psychological warfare, spreading rumors or displaying captured enemies to demoralize opposing forces. They understood the importance of morale and fear in warfare, not just brute strength. You imagine a Babylonian general giving a rousing speech, perhaps embellished with tales of their previous victories and the utter futility of resisting. And you're pretty sure those speeches never mentioned anyone feeling a bit rough after a night out. As you continue your exploration of the Babylonian military, you recall their ingenious siege tactics. They were masters of siege warfare, employing ramps, tunnels, and massive battering rams to overcome enemy fortifications. The fall of cities like Jerusalem to the Babylonian army is a testament to their effectiveness in this area. It's a mainstream historical fact that their engineers were highly skilled, applying their knowledge of construction to military objectives, which probably made them the ancient equivalent of military contractors. You consider the scholarly debate surrounding the ethics of ancient warfare. While brutal by modern standards, was there a code of conduct or accepted practices, however harsh, that governed their conflicts? And how did religious beliefs influence their justification for war and conquest? It's a complex question, trying to understand the morality of warfare in a distant past, far removed from modern sensibilities. You imagine a Babylonian soldier, perhaps after a victory, reflecting on the costs of war, even with a clear head. The sun is climbing higher now, and the heat is beginning to intensify. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area near the barracks, where you can observe the continuing rhythm of military life. You realize that the presence of the military permeated many aspects of Babylonian society, providing security, enforcing order, and expanding the empire. It was a constant, underlying force that shaped their history, and you're glad you got to observe it, clearly and completely. You find a small, secluded courtyard within the barracks, shaded by a temporary awning. The air is cooler here, and the sounds of training, though present, are somewhat muted. You sit on a low stool, closing your eyes and letting the discipline and purpose of the military wash over you. You reflect on the timeless human need for security and defense, the lengths to which societies will go to protect themselves and their interests. The Babylonians, you realize, were no different, developing sophisticated military systems to achieve these goals. You stir from your contemplation, feeling refreshed and invigorated. The sun is now high, marking the approach of midday. You feel a deep sense of appreciation for the organization and strategic thinking of the ancient Babylonian military. They built a formidable fighting force that allowed them to become a dominant power in the ancient Near East. And they did it all, you hope, with clear heads when it mattered most. You smile, you slowly rise, ready to continue your exploration or perhaps find a quiet place for an evening meal. The day has been rich with discovery, delving into the military heart of Babylon. You've seen the rigorous training, the logistical challenges, and the strategic thinking that defined their approach to warfare. And you've done it all with a clear mind, a privilege you certainly didn't have on your first morning here. You smile, thinking how far you've come from that initial, bewildered state. As twilight descends, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple, you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling. The city lights begin to twinkle, and the sounds of evening leisure fill the air. You hear the distant strains of music, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle laughter of children. It's a comforting symphony of life, a reminder that even amidst military might, the simple joys of human connection endured. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylonian soldiers, its siege engines, its strategic planning, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian military might and the comfort of a clear mind will accompany your dreams. A testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully, strategically, and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the familiar, comforting quiet of the Babylonian pre-dawn, a serenity that has become a cherished part of your daily routine here. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the subtle scents of dry earth, distant cooking fires, and the sweet perfume of date palms. Your mind is clear, your body deeply rested, and the connection you feel to this ancient landscape has deepened into a profound sense of familiarity. You stretch, a slow, deliberate movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare to delve into an often romanticized, but rarely understood aspect of Babylonian life, their agricultural practices, their mastery of irrigation, and the sheer effort required to feed a sprawling empire in an arid land. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the distant fields, painting them in soft, golden hues. You decide to head beyond the city walls, towards the vast agricultural lands that sustained Babylon. You recall that the prosperity of Mesopotamia was fundamentally built upon its fertile crescent, but that fertility was reliant on the complex management of its two great rivers. You imagine the network of canals, the tireless work of farmers, and the rhythmic cycle of planting and harvesting, and you're pretty sure they never complained about having to wake up early. You chuckle softly. As you walk, the streets are still relatively quiet, but you begin to see more farmers and laborers making their way out of the city, their tools slung over their shoulders. You pass by small shops already preparing for the day, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the earthy smell of clay and the faint sweetness of dates. You notice the efficient flow of people, a testament to the structured nature of Babylonian society, where even agricultural matters had their designated seasons and routines. You wonder if they had a farmer's market outside the city gates, or if everything was just brought inside. You arrive at the edge of the cultivated fields, a vast expanse of green stretching to the horizon. You immediately notice the intricate network of irrigation canals, some wide and deep, others narrow feeder channels, all flowing with the life-giving water from the Euphrates. You recall a mainstream historical fact that the Babylonians were masters of hydraulic engineering, constructing and maintaining elaborate canal systems that diverted river water to irrigate their crops. This mastery was crucial for transforming an arid landscape into highly productive farmland, supporting a large urban population. It was a feat of engineering that truly allowed their civilization to flourish. You then observe groups of farmers already at work, some guiding oxen pulling simple plows through the rich, dark soil, others meticulously clearing weeds from irrigation ditches. Their movements are practiced and efficient, reflecting centuries of agricultural knowledge passed down through generations. You recall a scholarly debate about the environmental impact of these extensive irrigation systems. While they brought prosperity, did they also contribute to the long-term salinization of the soil, eventually leading to reduced yields in some areas? It's a complex question, trying to balance immediate needs with long-term ecological consequences. You briefly imagine trying to manage a small irrigation ditch yourself, probably ending up with water everywhere but where it's needed. You move to a quieter area, observing a farmer carefully tending to his date palm grove. The trees are laden with ripening fruit, their clusters hanging heavy. Dates were a crucial crop in Babylon, providing not just food, but also materials for construction, fuel, and as you well know, the raw material for delicious and potent wine. It's a quirky tidbit that the date palm was so vital that every part of it was used, making it one of the most important plants in ancient Mesopotamia, often referred to as the tree of life. You smile, remembering your first morning, thinking that perhaps the date palm was also the tree of regret. You then observe a group of women gathering reeds from the edges of a marshy area. Reeds were another essential resource, used for building material, mats, baskets, and even for writing styluses. Their lives were intimately connected to the natural resources available to them, using everything efficiently and sustainably. You joke to yourself that they probably had a very specific reed for making the best hangover remedy stirrer. As you continue your exploration of Babylonian agriculture, you recall their main crops: barley, wheat, dates, and various vegetables like onions, garlic, and lentils. Their diet was largely plant-based, supplemented by fish from the rivers and occasionally meat from domesticated animals. The sheer scale of their agricultural production was impressive, allowing them to feed a vast empire and even produce surpluses for trade. It's a mainstream historical fact that barley was the most important cereal crop, forming the basis of their bread and beer. You consider the scholarly debate surrounding land ownership and labor organization in Babylonian agriculture. How much land was owned by the palace or temples, and how much by private individuals? And what was the role of free laborers versus slaves in cultivating these vast fields? It's a complex question, trying to understand the nuances of ancient land tenure and labor systems. You imagine a Babylonian farmer, weary from a long day's work, looking forward to a simple meal and a good night's sleep, probably without any lingering headaches. The sun is climbing higher now, and the heat is beginning to intensify. You decide to seek refuge in the shade of a large date palm, where you can observe the continuing rhythm of agricultural life. You realize that the prosperity and power of Babylon were fundamentally rooted in the productivity of these fields and the ingenuity of its farmers. It was the food produced here that fueled the city's growth, its armies, and its cultural achievements. And you're glad you got to observe it, clearly and completely. You find a comfortable spot beneath a sprawling date palm, its fronds providing ample shade. The air is warm and still, carrying the gentle hum of insects and the distant sounds of agricultural labor. You sit down, closing your eyes and letting the peaceful rhythm of the countryside wash over you. You reflect on the timeless human connection to the land, the fundamental act of cultivating food to sustain life. The Babylonians, you realize, were masters of this art, creating an agricultural system that was both highly productive and remarkably resilient for its time. You stir from your contemplation, feeling refreshed and invigorated. The sun is now high, marking the approach of midday. You feel a deep sense of appreciation for the tireless work and ingenious solutions of the ancient Babylonian farmers. They transformed a challenging environment into a fertile breadbasket, demonstrating a remarkable understanding of water management and sustainable agriculture. And they did it all, you hope, without too many hangovers affecting their crop yields. You smile. You slowly rise, ready to continue your exploration or perhaps find a quiet place for an evening meal. The day has been rich with discovery, delving into the agricultural heart of Babylon. You've seen the intricate irrigation systems, the diligent work of the farmers, and the sheer scale of production that fed an empire. And you've done it all with a clear mind, a privilege you certainly didn't have on your first morning here. You smile, thinking how far you've come from that initial, bewildered state. As twilight descends, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple, you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling. The city lights begin to twinkle, and the forms of the buildings soften in the fading light, becoming almost ethereal. You hear the distant strains of music, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle laughter of children. It's a comforting symphony of life, a reminder that even amidst monumental achievements, the simple act of cultivating the land was the true foundation of their existence. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylonian fields, its canals, its date palms, its tireless farmers, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian agriculture and the comfort of a clear mind will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully agriculturally and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the gentle stirrings of another Babylonian dawn, the cool air carrying the comforting sense of dry earth, distant cooking fires, and the subtle sweetness of date palms. Your mind is clear, your body deeply rested, and the feeling of being a quiet observer in this ancient landscape has settled into a profound sense of familiarity. You stretch, a slow, deliberate movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare to explore a more esoteric but deeply influential aspect of Babylonian life. Their systems of weights and measures, their understanding of time, and how these precise calculations underpin their commerce, astronomy, and daily routines. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the highest points of the ziggurats, casting long, dramatic shadows. You decide to head towards the main marketplace and the scribal schools, where the principles of measurement and timekeeping were most rigorously applied. You recall that the Babylonians developed incredibly precise systems for weighing goods, measuring land, and charting the passage of time, all essential for a complex society. You imagine merchants carefully weighing out silver, and astronomers meticulously calculating celestial movements, and you're pretty sure that a small miscalculation could lead to a very big argument. You chuckle softly. As you walk, the streets are still relatively quiet, but you begin to see more merchants and scribes making their way towards the market and administrative buildings. You pass by small shops already preparing for the day, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the earthy smell of clay and the faint sweetness of dates. You notice the efficient flow of people, a testament to the structured nature of Babylonian society, where even abstract concepts like measurement had their designated practices. You wonder if they ever had a standard weight stored in a temple, protected by very large guards. You arrive at the bustling marketplace, where the morning activity is already in full swing. You immediately notice the precise scales being used by merchants to weigh out grain, silver, and other commodities. These balances were often highly accurate, and disputes over weights and measures were a serious matter, often resolved by legal means. You recall a mainstream historical fact that the Babylonians developed a sophisticated system of weights and measures, with standardized units for length like the cubit, weight like the mina and shekel, and capacity like the ger. This standardization was crucial for fair trade and for the complex administration of the empire. You then observe a scribe meticulously measuring a plot of land using a measuring rope, carefully marking out the dimensions on a clay tablet. Land measurement was vital for taxation, for agricultural planning, and for legal disputes. You recall a scholarly debate about the accuracy of their land surveys. How precise were their instruments, and how consistently were measurements applied across the vast empire? The complexities of ancient surveying techniques are a fascinating subject for historians. You briefly imagine trying to measure a field with a rope yourself, probably ending up with a very lopsided result. You move to a quieter area, observing a group of astronomers at a small observatory, using water clocks and gnomons to track the passage of time and the movements of celestial bodies. You recall their adoption of a sexagesimal base 60 number system, which they applied to timekeeping, leading to our modern divisions of hours into 60 minutes and minutes into 60 seconds. It's a quirky tidbit that this base 60 system originated from the Sumerians and was widely used by the Babylonians, influencing not just time, but also angles in geometry. You smile, thinking how much of our modern world still bears the imprint of ancient Babylonian calculations. You then observe a group of individuals using sundials, simple yet effective instruments for telling time during the day. The shadow cast by a gnomon on a marked surface provided a rough indication of the hour. While not as precise as water clocks, sundials were practical for everyday use. You joke to yourself that they probably had a specific setting for hangover recovery time, which was just a very long, vague shadow. As you continue your exploration of Babylonian weights, measures, and time, you recall their highly developed calendar system. They used a lunisolar calendar, which combined lunar months with solar years, often adding an extra month to keep it aligned with the seasons. This intricate system was essential for agricultural planning, religious festivals, and administrative purposes. It's a mainstream historical fact that their astronomical observations were so precise that they could predict significant celestial events, which often guided their decisions. You consider the scholarly debate surrounding the influence of Babylonian timekeeping and measurement on later civilizations. How much did their sexagesimal system and their calendrical calculations shape the practices of the Greeks, Romans, and even later Islamic scholars? It's a complex question, tracing the threads of scientific and mathematical influence across millennia. There's no doubt that Babylon, as a major intellectual center, left a significant legacy in the fields of measurement and time. You imagine an ancient scholar from another land, diligently studying Babylonian texts to understand their complex calculations. The sun is climbing higher now, and the heat is beginning to intensify. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area within one of the scribal schools, where you can observe the continuing rigor of Babylonian education in these precise disciplines. You realize that the meticulousness of their measurements and their understanding of time were not just academic pursuits. They were fundamental to the functioning of their complex society, from commerce to agriculture to religious rituals. And you're glad you got to observe it, clearly and completely. You find a small, secluded courtyard within a scribal school, shaded by a large fig tree. The air is cool and still, and the distant sounds of the city are a gentle murmur. You sit on a low stone bench, closing your eyes and letting the precision and intellectual rigor of ancient Babylonian thought wash over you. You reflect on the timeless human quest for order and understanding, the desire to quantify the world around us and to impose structure on the passage of time. The Babylonians, you realize, were pioneers in this enduring pursuit, laying the groundwork for much of our modern understanding of measurement and chronology. You stir from your contemplation, feeling refreshed and invigorated. The sun is now high, marking the approach of midday. You feel a deep sense of appreciation for the intellectual achievements of the ancient Babylonians in the fields of weights, measures, and time. They developed systems that were not just functional, but remarkably precise for their era, enabling a complex and highly organized society. And they did it all, you hope, without any errors in calculation that might have caused a significant headache for someone. You smile. You slowly rise, ready to continue your exploration or perhaps find a quiet place for an evening meal. The day has been rich with discovery, delving into the precise and intellectual heart of Babylon. You've seen the meticulous nature of their measurements, the complexity of their timekeeping, and the enduring influence of their innovations. And you've done it all with a clear mind, a privilege you certainly didn't have on your first morning here. You smile, thinking how far you've come from that initial, bewildered state. As twilight descends, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple, you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling. The city lights begin to twinkle, and the forms of the buildings soften in the fading light, becoming almost ethereal. You hear the distant strains of music, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle laughter of children. It's a comforting symphony of life, a reminder that even amidst profound scientific and mathematical achievements, the simple joys of human connection endured. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylonian scales, its water clocks, its calendars, its precise calculations, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian precision and the comfort of a clear mind will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully, mathematically, and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the serene quiet of the Babylonian pre-dawn, a tranquility that has become an integral part of your experience here. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the familiar sense of dry earth, distant cooking fires, and the subtle sweetness of date palms. Your mind is clear, your body completely rested, and the connection you feel to this ancient landscape has deepened into a profound sense of belonging. You stretch, a slow, deliberate movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare to delve into a more nuanced aspect of Babylonian life, their literature, their storytelling traditions, and the enduring power of words to shape culture and transmit knowledge across generations. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the highest points of the ziggurats, casting long, dramatic shadows. You decide to head towards the temple libraries and scribal schools, the repositories of written knowledge and the birthplace of many literary masterpieces. You recall that the Babylonians produced a vast body of literature, from epic poems and myths to wisdom texts and legal documents. You imagine the scribes meticulously copying these works, preserving their cultural heritage for future generations. And you're pretty sure they never had writer's block. You chuckle softly. As you walk, the streets are still relatively quiet, but you begin to see more scholars and scribes making their way towards the literary centers. You pass by small shops already preparing for the day, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the earthy smell of clay and the faint sweetness of dates. You notice the efficient flow of people, a testament to the structured nature of Babylonian society, where even literary pursuits had their designated spaces. You wonder if they had literary clubs, or if everyone just quietly admired the Epic of Gilgamesh on their own time. You arrive at a large library hall within a temple complex, its shelves lined with countless clay tablets. The sheer volume of written material is astounding, a testament to the Babylonian reverence for the written word. You recall a mainstream historical fact that the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest surviving works of literature, originates from Mesopotamia, telling the tale of a heroic king's quest for immortality. It's a profound exploration of themes like friendship, loss, and the human condition, resonating across millennia. You imagine holding one of the original tablets, feeling the weight of ancient wisdom in your hands. You then observe a scribe meticulously copying a portion of the Epic of Gilgamesh onto a fresh clay tablet. His hand is steady, his focus intense, ensuring every cuneiform sign is perfectly rendered. You recall a scholarly debate about the role of oral tradition versus written literature in ancient Mesopotamia. How much were these stories performed and recited, and how much were they primarily meant to be read from tablets? And how did the act of writing on clay influence the style and structure of their narratives? The complexities of ancient literary transmission are a fascinating subject for historians. You briefly imagine trying to write a novel on clay tablets, probably giving up after the first paragraph. You move to a quieter area, observing an elderly storyteller recounting a myth to a group of rapt children in a shaded courtyard. His voice is rich with emotion, his gestures expressive, bringing the ancient tales to life. This oral tradition, passed down through generations, was a vital complement to the written word, making the stories accessible to everyone, regardless of literacy. It's a quirky tidbit that many of the myths and legends we know from Mesopotamia, like the creation myth Enuma Elish or the story of the Great Flood, were deeply ingrained in the popular consciousness through both written and oral forms. You smile, thinking how a good story can captivate any audience, ancient or modern. You then observe a group of scribes engaged in a lively debate, perhaps discussing the interpretation of a particular passage of a legal text, or the proper way to compose a diplomatic letter. Literary and scholarly discussion was clearly an important part of their intellectual life, refining their understanding of texts and language. You joke to yourself that they probably had very intense arguments about grammatical rules. It's a causative D stem, not a G stem. You Philistine! As you continue your exploration of Babylonian literature and storytelling, you recall their wisdom texts, collections of proverbs, ethical advice, and philosophical reflections on life's challenges. These texts offered practical guidance for living a good life, often emphasizing humility, justice, and devotion to the gods. They were a form of self-help literature, providing comfort and guidance in an uncertain world. It's a mainstream historical fact that these wisdom texts were often used in scribal schools to teach morality and proper conduct. You consider the scholarly debate surrounding the authorship of these texts. Were they the work of individual brilliant minds, or were they collaborative efforts, refined and reinterpreted over generations? And how much did they reflect the lived experiences of ordinary Babylonians versus the ideals of the scribal elite? It's a complex question, trying to understand the voices and perspectives behind these ancient literary works. You imagine an ancient philosopher wrestling with a particularly tricky proverb, perhaps after a rough night. The sun is climbing higher now, and the heat is beginning to intensify. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area within one of the temple courtyards, where you can reflect on the enduring power of Babylonian literature. You realize that their stories, their myths, and their wisdom texts were not just entertainment. They were fundamental to their cultural identity, their understanding of the world, and their place within it. They provided meaning, comfort, and a shared heritage across generations. And you're glad you got to observe it, clearly and completely. You find a small, secluded courtyard shaded by a large fig tree. The air is cool and still, and the distant sounds of the city are a gentle murmur. You sit on a low stone bench, closing your eyes and letting the echoes of ancient narratives wash over you. You reflect on the timeless human desire to tell stories, to make sense of the world through narrative, and to pass on wisdom and experience through the written and spoken word. The Babylonians, you realize, were masters of this art, creating a literary heritage that continues to resonate today. You stir from your contemplation, feeling refreshed and invigorated. The sun is now high, marking the approach of midday. You feel a deep sense of appreciation for the richness and depth of ancient Babylonian literature. They created a body of work that explored universal human themes, from heroism and mortality to wisdom and morality, leaving an indelible mark on the history of world literature. And they did it all, you hope, with clear heads when composing their masterpieces. You smile. You slowly rise, ready to continue your exploration, or perhaps find a quiet place for an evening meal. The day has been rich with discovery, delving into the literary heart of Babylon. You've seen the meticulous preservation of texts, the vibrant oral traditions, and the profound wisdom embedded within their stories. And you've done it all with a clear mind, a privilege you certainly didn't have on your first morning here. You smile, thinking how far you've come from that initial, bewildered state. As twilight descends, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple, you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling. The city lights begin to twinkle, and the forms of the buildings soften in the fading light, becoming almost ethereal. You hear the distant strains of music, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle laughter of children. It's a comforting symphony of life, a reminder that even amidst profound literary achievements, the simple joys of human connection endured. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylonian epics, its wisdom texts, its storytellers, its scribes, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian literature and the comfort of a clear mind will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully, literarily, and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the gentle, familiar sounds of the Babylonian pre-dawn, a comforting symphony that has become your daily backdrop. The cool, crisp air carries the subtle sense of dry earth, distant cooking fires, and the sweet perfume of date palms. Your mind is clear, your body deeply rested, and the feeling of being an integral part of this ancient landscape has deepened into a profound sense of peace. You stretch, a slow, deliberate movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare to delve into a truly unique and often misunderstood aspect of Babylonian life, their understanding of medicine and healing, and the fascinating blend of empirical observation, herbal remedies, and magical practices that characterized their approach to health. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the rooftops, casting long, dramatic shadows. You decide to head towards the Healer's Quarter, an area where various practitioners, from herbalists to exorcists, plied their trade. You recall that Babylonian medicine was a complex system, often intertwined with religious beliefs and a concept of illness as divine punishment or demonic possession. You imagine healers meticulously preparing remedies and patients seeking relief from various ailments. And you're pretty sure that sometimes the cure was worse than the disease, or at least tasted that way. You chuckle softly, remembering your own experience. as you walk. The streets are still relatively quiet, but you begin to see more individuals, some looking frail, making their way towards the healer's stalls. You pass by small shops already preparing for the day, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the earthy smell of clay and the faint sweetness of dates. You notice the efficient flow of people, a testament to the structured nature of Babylonian society, where even health matters had their designated practices. You wonder if they had a health insurance system, or if everyone just paid out of pocket, often in barley. You arrive at the healer's quarter, a bustling area filled with various stalls and small clinics. You immediately notice the pungent aromas of dried herbs, oils, and something vaguely metallic. You see herbalists grinding powders, preparing poultices, and dispensing various concoctions. You recall a mainstream historical fact that Babylonian medicine, as documented on numerous clay tablets, encompassed a wide range of ailments, from fevers and digestive issues to skin diseases and eye problems. They had a vast pharmacopoeia of plant-based remedies, many of which had genuine medicinal properties. You then observe a patient being examined by an asu, a physician who specialized in empirical healing using observation and herbal remedies. He carefully palpates the patient's abdomen, asking questions about their symptoms. You recall a scholarly debate about the extent to which these asu doctors relied on empirical observation versus magical or divinatory practices. While they clearly used rational methods, the line between medicine and magic was often blurred in ancient Mesopotamia. You briefly imagine a modern doctor trying to explain germ theory to a Babylonian physician. That would be an interesting consultation. You move to a quieter area, observing an ashipu, an exorcist or priest healer, performing a ritual over a patient. He recites incantations, burns incense, and makes symbolic gestures, seeking to drive out the evil spirit believed to be causing the illness. You recall that illness was often attributed to demons or the wrath of angry gods, requiring a spiritual intervention. It's a quirky tidbit that diagnosis often involved consulting omens, such as the appearance of a liver or dreams, to determine the cause of the affliction before prescribing a magical or herbal cure. You smile, thinking that at least for your hangover, no exorcism was required. You then observe a group of individuals preparing a magical remedy, perhaps a charm to wear or an amulet to place under a pillow. These were often combined with herbal treatments, providing a holistic approach to healing that addressed both the physical and the spiritual aspects of illness. You joke to yourself that they probably had a specific charm for warding off the spirit of too much date wine. As you continue your exploration of Babylonian medicine, you recall their understanding of anatomy, though it was largely based on animal dissection rather than human. They had a rudimentary understanding of the body's organs and their functions, often linking them to the emotions or to specific deities. It's a mainstream historical fact that their medical texts included lists of symptoms, diagnoses, and prognoses, demonstrating a methodical approach to illness. You consider the scholarly debate surrounding the effectiveness of Babylonian medicine. While some remedies were genuinely beneficial, how much of the healing process was due to the placebo effect, or the patient's belief in the power of the healer and the gods? And how much did their magical practices, though seemingly irrational to us, provide psychological comfort and hope to the sick? It's a complex question, trying to evaluate ancient medicine through a modern lens. You imagine a Babylonian patient feeling better, perhaps not knowing if it was the herbs or the chanting that did the trick. The sun is climbing higher now, and the heat is beginning to intensify. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area within the healer's quarter, where you can observe the continuing rhythm of medical practice. You realize that access to healing was a vital concern for everyone in Babylon, from the highest noble to the humblest commoner. Their diverse approaches to medicine blending the empirical with the magical, reflect a deep human desire to alleviate suffering and restore health. And you're glad you got to observe it, clearly and completely. You find a small, secluded courtyard, shaded by a large awning. The air is cooler here, and the distant sounds of the quarter, though present, are a gentle murmur. You sit on a low stool, closing your eyes and letting the nuances of ancient healing wash over you. You reflect on the timeless human struggle against illness, the constant quest for remedies, and the profound role that belief and ritual play in the healing process. The Babylonians, you realize, were pioneers in this enduring pursuit, leaving behind a rich legacy of medical knowledge and practices. You stir from your contemplation, feeling refreshed and invigorated. The sun is now high, marking the approach of midday. You feel a deep sense of appreciation for the ingenuity and resourcefulness of ancient Babylonian healers. They developed a comprehensive system of medicine that, while different from our own, sought to address both the physical and spiritual dimensions of health. And they did it all, you hope, without any serious misdiagnosis, especially when it came to a simple hangover. You smile, you slowly rise, ready to continue your exploration, or perhaps find a quiet place for an evening meal. The day has been rich with discovery. Delving into the medical heart of Babylon, you've seen the blend of empirical observation and spiritual practice, the meticulous preparation of remedies, and the enduring human desire for health and well-being. And you've done it all with a clear mind, a privilege you certainly didn't have on your first morning here. You smile, thinking how far you've come from that initial, bewildered state. As twilight descends, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple, you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling. The city lights begin to twinkle, and the forms of the buildings soften in the fading light, becoming almost ethereal. You hear the distant strains of music, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle laughter of children. It's a comforting symphony of life, a reminder that even amidst the challenges of illness, the simple joys of human connection endured. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylonian healers, its herbal remedies, its spiritual interventions, its ancient medical texts, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian medicine and the comfort of a clear mind will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully, medically, and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the profound quiet of the Babylonian pre-dawn, a stillness that has become a deeply cherished part of your daily routine here. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the subtle sense of dry earth, distant cooking fires, and the sweet perfume of date palms. Your mind is clear, your body completely rested, and the distinction between your world and this ancient one seems to have melted away, replaced by a deep sense of immersion. You stretch a slow, deliberate movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare to explore a more abstract yet fundamental aspect of Babylonian life, their philosophical and ethical thought, their concept of morality, and the ways in which they sought to live a good life in a world governed by powerful gods and complex social norms. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the highest points of the ziggurats, casting long, dramatic shadows. You decide to head towards the temple schools and scribal academies, not just as centers of learning, but as places where ethical principles and wisdom were transmitted. You recall that Babylonian literature included numerous wisdom texts, proverbs, and moral injunctions, offering guidance on how to navigate life's challenges. You imagine scholars debating the nature of justice, the meaning of suffering, and the path to divine favor. And you're pretty sure they had philosophical arguments about whether a hangover was divine punishment or just a bad decision. You chuckle softly. As you walk, the streets are still relatively quiet, but you begin to see more scholars and students making their way towards the intellectual centers. You pass by small shops already preparing for the day, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the earthy smell of clay and the faint sweetness of dates. You notice the efficient flow of people, a testament to the structured nature of Babylonian society, where even philosophical discourse had its designated spaces. You wonder if they had a public forum for debating profound questions, or if it was mostly confined to academic circles. You arrive at a shaded courtyard within a scribal school, where a master scribe is lecturing a group of students on a wisdom text. He reads from a clay tablet, his voice clear and resonant, discussing the importance of humility, honesty, and respect for elders. You recall a mainstream historical fact that Babylonian wisdom literature, often in the form of proverbs or dialogues, offered practical advice for living a virtuous life, emphasizing obedience to the gods, fulfilling one's social obligations, and dealing wisely with others. It was a form of ethical instruction, guiding individuals towards moral conduct. You then observe a group of students engaged in a philosophical discussion. Their voice is earnest as they debate the meaning of suffering or the nature of divine will. You recall a scholarly debate about the extent to which Babylonian thought developed into a true philosophy in the Western sense, with abstract reasoning and systematic inquiry, versus a more pragmatic, religious-based approach to understanding the world. While their thought was deeply rooted in their religious worldview, it certainly grappled with fundamental existential questions. You briefly imagine a Babylonian philosopher trying to explain the meaning of life, probably concluding it involved a lot of barley. You move to a quieter area, observing an individual meticulously copying a list of ethical precepts onto a clay tablet. These precepts might include warnings against false speech, cheating, or disrespecting one's parents. It's a quirky tidbit that Babylonian texts often emphasized the importance of maintaining proper relationships with both gods and fellow humans, believing that moral conduct was essential for individual well-being and societal harmony. You smile, thinking that perhaps they had a specific proverb for don't promise anything when you're drunk, too. You then observe a group of individuals seeking advice from an elder, perhaps a wise man or a respected priest. They listen intently as he offers guidance on a personal dilemma, drawing upon ancient wisdom and his own life experience. This informal transmission of ethical knowledge was just as important as formal instruction, providing practical moral guidance in everyday situations. You joke to yourself that he probably had a lot of experience with people who had regrettable decisions from the night before. As you continue your exploration of Babylonian philosophical and ethical thought, you recall their concept of personal accountability. While fate and divine will played a significant role, individuals were still expected to make moral choices and were held responsible for their actions. This balance between destiny and personal responsibility is a recurring theme in their texts. It's a mainstream historical fact that their legal codes often reflected these ethical principles, with punishments tailored to the nature of the offense and the intent of the perpetrator. You consider the scholarly debate surrounding the origins of Babylonian ethical thought. How much was it influenced by earlier Sumerian traditions? And how much was it a unique development of Babylonian culture? And how did their understanding of morality evolve over time, adapting to changing social and political circumstances? It's a complex question, tracing the development of ethical ideas in a distant past. You imagine an ancient sage contemplating the meaning of virtue, perhaps while sipping a cup of cool water. The sun is climbing higher now, and the heat is beginning to intensify. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area within the temple school, where you can reflect on the enduring wisdom of Babylonian thought. You realize that their philosophical and ethical inquiries were not just academic exercises. They were deeply practical attempts to grapple with the human condition, to understand suffering, to promote justice, and to guide individuals towards a meaningful existence. And you're glad you got to observe it, clearly and completely. You find a small, secluded courtyard, shaded by a large fig tree. The air is cool and still, and the distant sounds of the city are a gentle murmur. You sit on a low stone bench, closing your eyes and letting the echoes of ancient wisdom wash over you. You reflect on the timeless human quest for meaning and moral guidance, the desire to live a life that is both virtuous and fulfilling. The Babylonians, you realize, were pioneers in this enduring pursuit, leaving behind a rich legacy of ethical thought that continues to resonate today. You stir from your contemplation, feeling refreshed and invigorated. The sun is now high, marking the approach of midday. You feel a deep sense of appreciation for the depth and complexity of ancient Babylonian philosophical and ethical thought. They grappled with universal human questions, offering insights into morality, justice, and the nature of existence, shaping the very fabric of their society. And they did it all, you hope, with clear heads when contemplating such profound matters. You smile. You slowly rise, ready to continue your exploration or perhaps find a quiet place for an evening meal. The day has been rich with discovery, delving into the philosophical and ethical heart of Babylon. You've seen the wisdom embedded in their texts, the earnest debates of their scholars, and the practical guidance offered to their people. And you've done it all with a clear mind, a privilege you certainly didn't have on your first morning here. You smile, thinking how far you've come from that initial, bewildered state. As twilight descends, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple, you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling. The city lights begin to twinkle, and the forms of the buildings soften in the fading light, becoming almost ethereal. You hear the distant strains of music, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle laughter of children. It's a comforting symphony of life, a reminder that even amidst profound ethical inquiries, the simple joys of human connection endured. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylonian wisdom texts, its philosophical debates, its moral precepts, its ancient sages, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian philosophy and the comfort of a clear mind will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully, ethically, and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the serene quiet of the Babylonian pre-dawn, a stillness that has become a source of profound comfort. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the familiar sense of dry earth, distant cooking fires, and the subtle sweetness of date palms. Your mind is clear, your body completely rested, and the boundary between your world and this ancient one seems to have vanished, replaced by an almost spiritual connection to the past. You stretch, a slow, deliberate movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare for a day of deeper reflection, examining the symbolic significance of Babylon itself, its place in history, and its enduring legacy in the collective human imagination beyond just its physical remnants. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the highest points of the ziggurats, painting them in soft, golden hues. You decide to head towards the grand processional way and the imposing Ishtar Gate once more, but this time, with a focus on their symbolic power, You recall that Babylon was not just a city, it was an idea, a symbol of power, wealth, and human ambition, both celebrated and condemned throughout history. You imagine the ancient Babylonians gazing upon these structures, feeling a profound sense of pride and connection to something larger than themselves. And you're pretty sure they never thought this would make a great tourist attraction for future time travelers. You chuckle softly. As you walk, the streets are still relatively quiet, but you begin to see more individuals making their way towards the monumental centers, perhaps for early morning rituals or simply to greet the dawn in the shadow of greatness. You pass by small shops already preparing for the day, the scent of fresh bread mingling with the earthy smell of clay and the faint sweetness of dates. You notice the efficient flow of people, a testament to the structured nature of Babylonian society, where even symbolic meaning had its designated spaces. You wonder if they had civic pride parades, or if just existing here was enough of a celebration. You arrive at the Grand Processional Way, a wide, paved road leading to the Ishtar Gate and the main temple complex. It's flanked by high walls adorned with magnificent glazed brick reliefs of lions and mythical creatures. You recall a mainstream historical fact that Babylon, particularly under Nebuchadnezzar II, became synonymous with imperial power and splendor, a symbol of human achievement and often hubris. Its very name evokes images of ancient grandeur and biblical narratives. This symbolic weight, for good or ill, has persisted for millennia. You then observe the meticulous craftsmanship of the glazed bricks, each animal depicted with incredible detail and a vibrant, almost luminous color. You recall a scholarly debate about the motivations behind such monumental and symbolic construction. Was it purely for the glorification of the king and the gods, or was it also a form of propaganda, designed to instill awe and obedience in the populace and fear in enemies? The interplay of power, religion, and symbolism is a fascinating aspect of ancient empires. You briefly imagine a very humble, shy king trying to build a very small, unassuming gate. It probably wouldn't have become legendary. You move closer to the Ishtar Gate, marveling at the colossal size and the powerful imagery. The lions and dragons seem to leap from the walls, guardians of the city and symbols of its strength. You consider the enduring legacy of Babylon in later cultures. It appears in biblical texts as a place of exile and judgment, in Greek histories as a marvel of engineering, and in later art and literature as a symbol of human excess and eventual downfall. It's a quirky tidbit that the Tower of Babel from the biblical narrative is often associated with the ziggurat of Itamananki in Babylon, a symbol of human ambition reaching for the heavens. You smile, thinking how a single city could embody so many different meanings. You then observe a group of scribes within a shaded colonnade, meticulously copying texts. These texts, whether historical annals, religious hymns, or literary works, all contributed to the construction and transmission of Babylon's symbolic identity. They were not just records. They were narratives that shaped how Babylonians understood themselves and how others viewed them. You joke to yourself that they probably had a specific scribe whose job was just to make sure Babylon always sounded amazing in the historical records. As you continue your exploration of Babylon's symbolic significance, you recall the city's association with wealth and luxury. Its fertile lands, bustling trade, and advanced crafts made it a center of material prosperity. This wealth, in turn, fueled its monumental construction and artistic patronage, further solidifying its image as a magnificent city. It's a mainstream historical fact that Babylonian luxury goods, like textiles and jewelry, were highly sought after throughout the ancient world, reinforcing its reputation for opulence. You consider the scholarly debate surrounding the fall of Babylon. While often portrayed as a dramatic, divinely ordained event, historians debate the extent to which it was a sudden collapse or a more gradual decline influenced by internal strife and external pressures? And how did later narratives, particularly biblical ones, shape our understanding of its demise, often imbuing it with moral lessons? It's a complex question, disentangling historical fact from later symbolic interpretation. You imagine an ancient historian trying to write an objective account, probably realizing it's easier to just tell a good story. The sun is climbing higher now, and the heat is beginning to intensify. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area within the temple complex, where you can reflect on the enduring symbolic power of Babylon. You realize that its influence extends far beyond its physical ruins, living on in literature, art, and the collective human imagination. It is a testament to the power of human achievement, ambition, and the timeless lessons learned from both triumph and downfall. And you're glad you got to observe it clearly and completely. You find a small, secluded courtyard shaded by a large fig tree. The air is cool and still, and the distant sounds of the city are a gentle murmur. You sit on a low stone bench, closing your eyes and letting the weight of Babylon's historical and symbolic significance wash over you. You reflect on the timeless human fascination with grand empires, their rise and fall, and the lessons they offer about human nature and the cycles of history. The Babylonians, you realize, left behind not just bricks and tablets, but an enduring narrative that continues to shape our understanding of the ancient world. You stir from your contemplation, feeling refreshed and invigorated. The sun is now high, marking the approach of midday. You feel a deep sense of appreciation for the profound legacy of ancient Babylon, a legacy that transcends its physical existence and lives on in the stories and symbols that permeate our culture. And you did it all, you hope, without any historical inaccuracies due to a lingering hangover. You smile. You slowly rise, ready to continue your exploration or perhaps find a quiet place for an evening meal. The day has been rich with discovery, delving into the symbolic heart of Babylon. You've seen its grandeur, its enduring myths, and its powerful presence in the human imagination. And you've done it all with a clear mind, a privilege you certainly didn't have on your first morning here. You smile, thinking how far you've come from that initial, bewildered state. As twilight descends, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple, you make your way back towards your temporary dwelling. The city lights begin to twinkle, and the forms of the buildings soften in the fading light, becoming almost ethereal. You hear the distant strains of music, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle laughter of children. It's a comforting symphony of life, a reminder that even amidst grand historical narratives, the simple joys of human connection endured. You step inside your simple home, the familiar coolness a welcome embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the gentle tug of sleep. The images of Babylon's symbolic gates, its legendary towers, its enduring place in human memory, all swirl pleasantly in your mind. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep. The gentle whispers of ancient Babylonian symbolism and the comfort of a clear mind will accompany your dreams, a testament to a journey well traveled and a world fully, symbolically, and peacefully experienced. You awaken to the gentle, familiar quiet of your Babylonian dwelling, a stillness that has become a profound and cherished part of your temporary existence here. The cool, crisp air carries the subtle sense of dry earth, distant cooking fires, and the sweet perfume of date palms, a symphony of aromas that now feels like home. Your mind is clear, your body deeply rested, and the initial jolt of time travel has long since faded, replaced by a deep and comfortable integration with this ancient world. You stretch, a slow, deliberate movement that expresses your utter contentment, and prepare for your final day of immersion, reflecting on the enduring lessons Babylon, offers and the universal human experiences that connect us across millennia. You step outside your dwelling, feeling the cool clay underfoot. The first rays of sun are just beginning to touch the highest points of the ziggurats, painting them in soft, golden hues, a familiar and beautiful sight. You decide to take a final, leisurely walk through the city, allowing your senses to absorb every detail, every sound, every scent, knowing that soon, this incredible journey will draw to a close. You recall that Babylon, for all its specific historical context, offers timeless insights into human nature, ambition, resilience, and the constant search for meaning. And you're pretty sure that even the ancient Babylonians knew when it was time for a good, long rest. You chuckle softly. As you walk, the streets are alive with the morning's quiet activity, a familiar rhythm of life unfolding. You pass by homes where families are preparing for their day, markets slowly coming to life, and scribes making their way to their studies. You notice the efficient flow of people, a testament to the structured nature of Babylonian society, where even profound reflections had their moments amidst daily routines. You wonder if they ever had a feeling of nostalgia for their own past, or if they were too busy building the present. You pause by the communal well, watching women draw water, their conversations low and steady. You remember the simple yet vital act of hydration, a basic human need that transcends time. And you recall how crucial that cool water was on your first morning here, a literal lifeline from the depths of your ancient hangover. This simple well, you realize, embodies the timeless human need for sustenance and community, a mainstream historical fact in every civilization. You then observe a potter at his wheel, his hands deftly shaping clay. You reflect on the incredible craftsmanship and ingenuity of the Babylonians, their ability to create beauty and utility from the raw materials of their land. From monumental architecture to everyday pottery, their skill was remarkable, a testament to human creativity. You briefly imagine showing him a modern plastic bottle, probably confusing him greatly. He'd probably wonder where the clay went. You move to a quieter area, observing children playing a game with knuckle bones, their laughter echoing through the narrow streets. You recall the universal nature of play, the joy and innocence that transcends millennia and cultures. It's a quirky tidbit that such simple games have been found in archaeological sites across many ancient civilizations, indicating their enduring appeal. You smile, thinking how some joys, like simple games and the absence of a headache, are truly timeless. You then observe an elder sitting quietly in the shade, observing the passing scene with a wise, contemplative gaze. You recall the respect for elders in Babylonian society, their role as keepers of wisdom and tradition. You reflect on the enduring human quest for understanding, the desire to learn from the past and to pass on knowledge to future generations. You joke to yourself that he probably had some stories about hangovers that would make yours sound like a mild inconvenience. As you continue your final walk through Babylon, you reflect on the cyclical nature of history. Empires rise and fall, but human experiences, desires, and challenges often remain constant. The Babylonians faced issues of governance, justice, economic stability, and personal well-being, just as people do today. Their solutions, though ancient, often offer insights into enduring human patterns. It's a mainstream historical fact that the rise and fall of great empires, like Babylon, provide invaluable lessons about power, prosperity, and the inevitability of change. You consider the scholarly debate about the ultimate impact of Babylon on later civilizations. While its direct political influence waned, its cultural, scientific, and artistic legacies continued to resonate, shaping the development of other empires and traditions. How much of our modern world, from our timekeeping to our storytelling, still carries the faint echo of ancient Babylon? It's a profound question, tracing the invisible threads of history that connect us to this distant past. You imagine a Babylonian scholar centuries later, wondering how their legacy would be remembered. The sun is climbing higher now, and the heat is beginning to intensify. You decide to seek refuge in a shaded area, perhaps a final visit to a quiet temple courtyard, where you can gather your thoughts before your journey concludes. You realize that your time in Babylon has been more than just a historical tour. It has been a profound immersion, allowing you to experience, however briefly, the texture of an ancient life, complete with its joys, its challenges, and its surprising remedies. And you're glad you got to conclude it with clarity, not lingering regret. You find a small, secluded courtyard shaded by a large fig tree. The air is cool and still, and the distant sounds of the city are a gentle murmur. You sit on a low stone bench, closing your eyes and letting the entirety of your Babylonian experience wash over you. You reflect on the privilege of stepping back in time, of witnessing a vibrant civilization firsthand, and of understanding that while technology and customs change, the fundamental human spirit endures. You've journeyed through their celebrations, their struggles, and their remarkable resilience. You stir from your contemplation, feeling refreshed and a little melancholic, knowing your time here is drawing to a close. The sun is now high, marking the approach of midday. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the journey, for the lessons learned, and for the unique perspective gained. You've seen Babylon not as a dusty relic, but as a living, breathing testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. And you've done it all, miraculously, without a final debilitating hangover. You smile. You slowly rise, ready for your departure, carrying with you the indelible impressions of this ancient world. The day has been rich with reflection, consolidating all the incredible experiences you've had. You've truly understood how ancient Babylonians tried to cure a hangover, and so much more, experiencing the very fabric of their lives, from their grand achievements to their simple daily routines. And you've done it all with a clear mind, a privilege that made this journey truly unforgettable. As twilight descends, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and purple, you make your final way towards your dwelling. The city lights begin to twinkle, and the forms of the buildings soften in the fading light, becoming almost ethereal. You hear the distant strains of music, the murmur of conversation, and the gentle laughter of children. It's a comforting symphony of life, a reminder that even as you depart, the timeless spirit of Babylon continues to resonate and echo across the millennia. You step inside your simple home one last time, the familiar coolness a final, gentle embrace. You prepare your reed mat, feeling the familiar tug of sleep, but this time, it's a prelude to returning to your own time. The images of Babylon, its people, its wonders, its unique remedies, all swirl pleasantly in your mind, a rich tapestry of experience. You close your eyes, feeling the warmth of your mat and the coolness of the air. Your breath deepens, slowing to a peaceful rhythm. You are completely at ease, ready for a deep and restorative sleep, knowing that you've witnessed a truly extraordinary past and gained a new appreciation for the enduring human spirit, hangover and all. Your journey for tonight and for now is complete.